value increases or through a fresh outlook on the needs of the school district. But either way, the taxpayers will embrace this tax reduction. And again, we thank you. Also, I applaud GISD for discussing live streaming of the board proceedings. The benefits to the taxpayers, parents, students, and the community at large are measurable. Whether it's based on a desire for open government transparency in the 21st century platform of social media, or as a communication tool for students, parents, and citizens to understand why things are done here in the district. Excuse me. There are many who highly support it and would urge this board to approve it. After reviewing the slides, I ask that in discussion, please do not discount the option of having Uncounty News continue the Facebook Live broadcast. Their audience for City Council meetings normally exceed 2,000 viewership. And I'm confident that once advertised, the viewership for these board meetings would reach or exceed those numbers. Finally, I would ask that during discussion or the action discussion items portions of the agenda, more information be provided on why 600 days of substitutes were needed in a 2-week period in April, why another $1 million budget amendment is required for the STEM school, and why there is a $1 million shortage in the M&O budget, including $400,000 for repairs. Are any of these repairs associated with recently completed bond work, and could they be a warranty item? I mean, those are just some of the things that popped out while I reviewed the agenda. And as always, I thank you for your service to the community, and thank you for all you do. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Is there anyone else? Next item on our agenda is the reports and discussion item, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, ma'am. This one? Or is that on? Thank you, Madam President. School, of course, has been dismissed, and we are well into summer school. Today, students actually tested for the third administration of students in 5th and 8th grade that had held the first 2 previous administrations. As you know, that is what we call a student success initiative grading, meaning that state requires that they pass that test in order to move to the next grade. So we have some students that are doing that, have gone to summer school and now testing for that. Also, the administration building is open during the summer hours from Monday through Thursday. We're working extended hours on Monday through Thursday so staff can enjoy a 3-day weekend. And other than that, my next report will be the STEM update that will be presented by the construction piece by Mr. Shores and the staffing piece by Stacy Klutz. I'm sorry, I had a brain freeze.
Board of Trustees. I'm here to discuss the construction end of the STEM school. And right now, everything is progressing as scheduled. The flooring is almost complete. The walls are complete. The cabinetry is mostly all stained and looking very good. The ceiling's coming in this Friday. All of the technology work that Shannon's in charge of, they've got all that into the ceiling and it's all ready, and so the ceiling's ready to go in. So we'll get the ceiling tile in, and that'll give it a finished look on the inside. The door hardware is coming in next week, and we'll start installing the doors and all the hardware for that. So I talked to Barleycock today. They feel like they're on schedule, or maybe even slightly ahead of schedule on everything that they're doing. I also talked with Huckabee and Mooring today on the STEM gym. And it's running a little slow because of some contract issues, but we feel that you know, they think it could be done for school. If not, we'll build a fence around it and we'll have it finished within a week or two after school starts. So we did run into some snags, like I said, on contracts with that and getting all of that between the district, Huckabee, and Mooring. But we should be taking something to the city by the end of the week, is what Huckabee told me today. So all is good there. Any questions?
You said there was some contract.
It has to do with they're all ironed out now. We have all the signatures. We've issued a PO to them and all that. It's just negotiation with the lawyers. Took a week or two longer than what we anticipated, and then after we got it back, there were some more questions that had to go back to the lawyers, and who's responsible, the ultimate responsibility between Huckabee, Estes McClure, who is the civil, and Mooring, and how all that had to be negotiated out. So it took, as a lot of legal things do, it took a little longer than what we anticipated, but it's all finalized now, and we're ready to go to city for permits.
And we're in the good, right?
Oh, yes, everything's good.
Absolutely.
On the budget analysis sheet that you gave us, are you going to speak to that, or is someone else going to speak to that?
On the which analysis?
The analysis of budget versus actual expenditures, this spreadsheet.
I think Gary is going to speak
Later.
to that later.
I'll hold my
During that issue, is that correct?
We can now if you want to.
Please come up.
Is that for
Sure.
sure?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that you're showing an additional required expense on here of $50,000.
That's
And I
right.
think I understand that 30 of that is for HVAC repairs. And
Because
then
we know 3 units are bad and they do need replacing. They're about 10,000 apiece, and so that leaves about 20,000. There's some forwarding issues that's probably about 10,000, so we got about $10,000 extra in there.
for contingency.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Let me address the air conditioning issues, because when the district acquired that building, there was an assumption that everything was working, and I think some comments were made that it was working the way we liked it. But when stuff sits for months like that, things do happen. As we had Bartek evaluate those, we got detailed sheets on that. And we were hoping that we'd be able to repair a lot of that with our GISD staff. And on, I think, all but 3 of the units, we were able to get them all running. And right now, all 9 units are running. There are problems with 3 of them though. And the one that's scary is that there are holes in the heat exchanger in one of them, which leaks carbon monoxide. And so we do not want carbon monoxide when there's kids. We don't want that around any employees or anybody. So that has to be taken care of. And when you work on these units, you also have to upgrade to the new type of Freon. And so that's an expense. A couple of them need coils, condensers, regulators. And so basically what we got into, we could buy 3 new units for approximately $30,000, or we could repair them for about $22,000 or $23,000. So it only makes sense, and since we're gonna have to really change out that one, you're gonna have to rent a crane, $500 an hour. 3 of them need to be replaced, and we'll end up replacing them over the next couple of years anyway. Go ahead and get that done so that we don't have breakdowns when we're trying to start school. And so that's the $30,000 that we're looking for.
And we'll get a warranty with those? too?
Yes. And if they repaired them, there's only warranty on the repaired parts and not the other parts. And that's another issue on why you just go ahead. And it only makes good financial sense to replace those. And I think that's item J, change order 1004.
I have a couple of questions, and you may have addressed this Were there any changes to the schedule?
They're on schedule from where we are right now,
So there have been no changes to the schedule?
not.
I noticed that it wasn't in the packet this month.
That's true, okay.
I'm sorry?
That is a true statement, there's been no change.
Okay.
And the STEM gym is not in Bartlett Cox's schedule, and I explained, like I said. So that's a separate project. In fact, Bartlett Cox wanted us to wait until they were done to start that, so that they don't have any problems getting all their stuff approved. But we've already discussed that to get all their final permits and, their final approvals and stuff. But, so it's really almost working out that way.
The remaining items to complete the project are all of those, there are no issues with any of
They're on
those
schedule.
other than mooring, okay. And then the 10,000 for flooring, what is that unanticipated cost for?
What we had, what we found in that existing building is there's some drop-offs on the ends of the building. And so we had to come back in and float a lot of that, do some self-leveling, and brought it and had to use some additional materials to make that stick. There was also a high humidity in certain areas of that building. You can't get warranty if it's over 95% on tile work if the humidity and the moisture level in the floor. There was a couple of areas that were very high. When we turned the air conditioners on, that took care of the rest of the building, and it was all good. So we had to spend a little extra on materials to get it stick on the high humid areas. And that was all. You wouldn't know that until you got to that point. There's no way to forecast that. Thank you. We'll get the educational report.
Madam President, Dr. Liggins Ford, thank you so much for having me tonight to give you an update on some great things that have been going on this past month with the STEM. We have had a 2-day training with our staff on building our climate and culture. And from that, we created our vision statement as a collaborative group. And that is explore the why to discover what others have yet to imagine. And then we also created our mission statement, which is through exploration, collaboration, and discovery in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we will empower students to be leaders in an innovative learning environment. And these statements will be what drives our decisions and our instruction and to make it a great place to be for our students. And we now are fully staffed with high-quality STEM-minded teachers. This is our current enrollment, so you can see the numbers across the district where we pulled from, and that was requested, so we wanted to make sure that was included. Right now we have an enrollment of 213. We are still recruiting. We plan to go to an area-wide vacation Bible school on Monday. Dr. Liggins and I are going to make sure the community is well aware of the school of choice. Mr. Underwood and I will be hand delivering some flyers to apartment complexes as we have been getting emails about new students coming into Greenville, and they are very interested in our school of choice as well. We are sending blasts out on social media. I don't know if you saw on Facebook today, but NBCDFW.com picked up the Herald Banner story about naming the school. So that is circulating and getting some interest as well, so that's exciting. These are the demographics. The red is GISD, and so we wanted to make sure we tried to mirror as closely as possible. We know our largest ethnic group is Hispanic, and that's where you'll see that pool. Economically disadvantaged, we are right there, knowing that our kinder children have not registered, so we anticipate that number to grow as well. Are there questions?
I noticed we have some out-of-district kids already. Are those teachers' children? Or
Some are, yes.
Were there any children rejected who had siblings in it?
There was one family that had siblings, and it was due to capacity, because they were in a grade level that at that time was full, and so they chose to stay at their home campus so they could be together.
I would just like to clarify, because we say we're still recruiting, yet we have a waiting list. The waiting lists are for students in grade levels that are at capacity. We're still recruiting. We would like, obviously, to fly the plane, pun intended, or the rocket at full capacity. So we're still recruiting for specific grade levels that still are not completely full. So parents may hear that, well, we're on a waiting list, why are you still recruiting? That's because your child's grade level is full, but we have grade levels that are not.
Which grade levels are not full?
Second grade and fifth grade.
Any other questions?
Are you going to put the vision statement somewhere in your building?
Yes, we do plan to do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the principal's reports. We've all had the opportunity to look at those. Are there any questions? Dr. Hook, all principals out there. Next item, progress report on raising highly capable kids program.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are going to briefly share a presentation with you regarding our parenting class, Raising Highly Capable Kids. And before we get started, I'd like to emphasize that the class was done in collaboration with 5 agencies in the school district. In Greenville, RAFA, the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast Texas, the YMCA, and also GISD ACE. So we're really glad for that collaboration. So Highly Capable Kids gives parents tools to raise strong families. It was a 10-week program, and it covered 40 developmental assets. Basically, they would introduce the asset, teach and practice the assets. The more assets a student acquires, the higher the likelihood of their success. So Raising Highly Capable Kids is a research-based program. Research Making Change out of Denver, Colorado had surveyed about 300 parents in a qualitative study, and these parents confirmed that they thought the class was highly enjoyable and would recommend it to a friend. And they also observed that the parents that had kids in the program reported that the children were changing their behaviors. Now, this research did not include Greenville. This was before Greenville as a method of determining the validity of the program. And I'll pass this around if you'd like to see the research.
So we began the program on September the 29th. Our classes ran from 5:30 to 7 at Lamar Elementary School. The last class was held on December the 8th. We provided dinner for our parents and students to enjoy a meal together before the class began. ACE provided the child care, and on December the 11th, we had a graduation ceremony. This is a picture of our graduation celebration. Each parent was given a participant's guide, which you see right there. In that, they kind of did an asset inventory on how many assets their family possessed and how many they still could acquire. We had a total of 9 parents attend the class, the 10-week course. And at the end of it, on December the 11th, we had a graduation ceremony here in the boardroom where the parents received a certificate of completion. GISD, our partners, provided a catered meal of tamales. And YMCA, in addition to including providing incentives for our classes, they also acquired a fabulously fun day of shenanigans for our families, which included 2 hours of free bowling, 2 hours of free laser tag, and even a $10 gift card that the families could use in the arcade.
I'm just curious, why was the class done at Lamar instead of somewhere else?
Well, Lamar, we chose that location. Kind of central, it was kind of easy access for our parents, and they had a very large library that we could use in the cafeteria.
What parents were you trying to reach?
Well, actually, can I
Yes.
Answer that question? Mr. Jeffrey suggested Lamar, that we go with that. We had actually looked at several different sites with Barbara Price, but he suggested Lamar because they would be the easiest set up.
And so, the parents that come, what if they didn't have proper transportation? Did we supply that? How do we do this? Okay.
We did not offer transportation for this course, but we did open it to all of our parents. We circulated around to each campus during the ACE program, Ginevra Ott and myself, and we promoted the program for about a week and a half. We wanted to, since it was a 10-week course, we wanted it to complete before the Christmas break. So we didn't have a lot of time to prepare because we did want to have it done in term 1.
And to reach the parents that, through ACE, a lot of the parents come in to pick the students up, but a lot of students go home via the bus, so we didn't want to leave those students out either. And so ACE does a bus rodeo 3 or 4 times a year. And in our bus rodeo, we hand out little bags of information based on the community, things such as drug-free Greenville. And so in those bags, we put information about the class, and we ride the school buses, and any parents that are out waiting for their kids, or the kids sometimes will invite us in to meet the parents, we distribute them right to their hands. So that's another way we try to reach them.
So we basically just throw a class together out at Lamar, and let's see what we end up with, go from there, right?
Well, we were approached, as Amber said, within 2 or 3 weeks before they wanted to start it by the district. And they said, would you be interested, ACE, in helping us? And we said, absolutely. And so we did, and we gave it, you know, we did what we did.
So did we do this year based on the school need, or we did just based on?
I believe the Rafa Clinic approached Mr. Don Jeffries and asked him if he would collaborate with them. And we were given, and I don't know the reason why the district, and why it came to ACE, but when we were asked, we were absolutely delighted to help. And so we,
I think
we did what we could. And so I don't really know, Mr. Brown, a lot of the, background to how it came to us.
I think it's a good program, but
I understand your concerns.
But my belief is a little bit different. If we have a school that possibly may be low performing, shouldn't we hit that area first?
Yeah,
I
think that's a valid point. I do.
And that's the only reason why I asked them.
Oh, no, I think that's a totally valid point, and I agree with you. I do know that this is kind of how it played out this time. We are very open to doing this again. And if we did it again, we would definitely look at it a little differently and hopefully have just a little bit more time for prep. And, we would definitely look at that and try to do that as well. So, sorry.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Ironically enough, we had more representation from the other campuses than at Lamar where we housed the class.
Yeah.
We had several Crockett parents, several Travis parents, and several Bowie parents. We actually didn't have any Lamar parents attend the class.
But that doesn't make any, it doesn't make any sense to have it out there if we're not having any participation from them out there. it should be in a location where we maybe need it the most. And so that could give more access to other parents if it's in their location. I'm just curious.
No, that's really a valid point. Thank you for bringing that up. And as far as the transportation for any of the schools, were you concerned about transportation for the students or for the parents as well?
Parents.
For the parents? And that's something that we could definitely look into, is working with the transportation department and maybe getting transportation for the parents. That's a great suggestion.
Because if I read this correctly, this is to help those children,
Yes.
you know, with their behavior, with all these different things. It also gives the parents the confidence to be able to help their children. And
Yes.
so if I look at this program and the way this program is designed, it says that I need to put this program in the area that's needed the most.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say that Lamar parents don't need it either.
I'm not saying
No,
that they don't need it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we have schools that
Yeah.
are low performing, so wouldn't it be?
And this addresses, it does address in kind of an indirect way their academic performance, but it addresses more social, emotional aspects as well, which all the students can benefit. But I definitely appreciate all your remarks, and, you know, if we do it again this year with the RAFA clinic, and we would definitely take those into consideration and look at that for sure. And the transportation issue as well. That's a great suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Liggins, do you happen to know, through this process, do you happen to know, was this action, I do remember RAPA Clinic coming and speaking to the board. Do you happen to know if there was any action by the board as to whether or not we approved for them to?
Yes, you did approve it.
So at that point, the board has some responsibility as well, that perhaps we should have seen a sufficient plan in how they're gonna roll out this information and how they're gonna go about implementing this type of program among our schools. So I just want to clarify that I don't think that the ACE program, who was so kind to take this on, should be held completely accountable for the lack of planning or anything else that may have taken place.
And let me remind you, it wasn't holding them accountable. The thing was did we set this up where it should have been set up?
I agree.
And I'm not holding, by no means am I holding anybody accountable, because I still believe exactly what you said from the beginning, is that Mr. Jeffrey chose Lamar, and that's where it is.
I believe that's how it came down. I mean, that's as I remember it. I'm not saying that yeah.
At the same time, I'm not saying that anybody's held accountable for this. What I'm saying is that if we're gonna take a program like this, then we need to look at it where it is needed the most.
Right.
And all I'm saying is that we as a board should establish that on the front end so that we don't have this problem once everything comes about.
I'm assuming one of the reasons it was at Lamar's because they have the ACE program there. So maybe next time it might be a good idea to partner with the Boys and Girls Club so that the program could be held over in that town of Carver, because they don't have the ACE program, so you've lost your child care.
Yeah, I actually believe didn't we have at least one Carver?
We did have a Carver.
Even though Carver's not a part of the ACE program, we took the information to Carver and we included them as well.
Oh, I'm sure that you did.
Yeah, but that's a great point. And we do have ACE at the other campuses, not just at Lamar. No, and I think it's worthwhile to bring these points up as well too, because then we know for next time, and I like knowing that information as well. And again, I'm pretty sure how that is how it came about with the Lamar choice. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but that's how it was described to me initially. So,
how many children did we have in the program this time?
In this particular, we had about 12 students that came regularly with their parents. So we had about 9 parents consistently, and anywhere from 12 to 14 students each class. on that one.
Okay. So finally, we try to keep the community and the parents involved by doing various Facebook postings. And so this, I believe, was our second class. And then we did some home baked goods as well as, and I did a little baking, and I think Amber had some other folks baking just to give it that special touch. We try to do, you know, the tablecloths and that sort of thing to make it real homey for the parents. And so this was about the second one. And then finally, here's another little picture and a Facebook posting. And this is still on our ACE Facebook site, which you can check that out if you would like to. And that was at the graduation. And Amber had just a quick little kind of a byproduct of the whole process with these parents. And the parents attended. The parents that did come, they attended 100%, which was really amazing.
And they were very shy and reticent to share at the beginning. They got out of that pretty quickly. And as I said, at our shenanigans party, as we were wrapping up, every single parent was writing down email addresses and phone numbers. They were taking photos of the main list so that they could share it among themselves and keep in touch and continue to support each other after the class. So the ones that we had, I think, really got something out of the program.
And we're really trying to create a positive buzz with this first class and really give them a good experience so that hopefully we can build on that.
And I did have parents ask me at the graduation, they were like, well, what's next? When is the next class?
Yeah.
So we did have some interest with our parents.
If I remember correctly, this was a zero-cost program other than maybe the catered tamales, correct?
Yes.
Right. ACE provided the childcare, and then our community partners all pitched in. And so from that aspect, that was pretty rewarding as well, seeing the community come together with the school district and do something cool for parents. So that was exciting.
I wanted to make a comment or two because of another affiliation with RAFA. I became familiar with this program before it was brought to Mr. Jeffries for his consideration, and I went through the training that the RAFA clinic had coordinated through that grant to administer the program. And there was an evening, one of the weekly sessions. Neither of the facilitators could be there because of a strange turn of events with their family. So they asked me to go and facilitate the night. So I actually got to go one evening and facilitate the lesson for the families that were there. And I participated in the dinner that you guys put on. And she's underselling it. ACE did a fantastic job of decorating the tables and going the extra mile with home-baked, I think that night it was cupcakes.
Yes.
And the kids, of course, went crazy for the cupcakes. And it was just a real sweet personal touch that told those parents that this isn't just a program that we're throwing at you, but it's something that we're investing in on a personal level, because that wasn't something that had to be, that wasn't a perk that had to be provided. It was really sweet. And walking through the lesson with them that night, first of all, it's very easy to administer the lesson for the night. It is just really well laid out in the leader guide and in the participants guide. And the dialogue, I think we were maybe 4 or 5 weeks in at that point. So the foundation had been laid. And just the dialogue between the parents and their willingness to be really transparent and to answer the questions and to kind of encourage one another, like one of them would begin to kind of beat themselves up and another one would say, oh, you know, we all struggle with that. It was just kind of sweet to see that camaraderie getting built up. And if there's any way that we can continue to participate in it and do some of the things that you guys mentioned to improve it, I would definitely be in favor of us continuing to participate.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Liggins, do you know if the RAFA clinic has approached the district to discuss doing this next year?
To my knowledge, they have not as of yet. I understand last year it came at a very last minute.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I've not heard anything as of yet. And to clarify your question earlier, I'm not sure if it was a discussion item or an approval item, but it did come before the board.
I don't think it was an approval item. The RAFA clinic does another program with the district, and I think we did approve that. It was abstinence program, we approved that. But I don't think this one, we really had much to do with that as a board.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think it would be, should we approach the Rafa Clinic our own self maybe? Would that be something maybe we should consider?
I wouldn't be opposed to that, so, let me, get with Joanna and, I'll get back with you guys about if we progress on that at all, or if they're continuing to do it.
Next item on our agenda is the senior exit survey.
Madam President, Dr. Liggins, Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure tonight to bring to you a presentation on our senior class exit surveys. You might recall back in our November board meeting, we brought the results of the 2017 senior exit survey, and at the request of the board, this is a compilation of the last 3 that we have done for the class of 2014, class of 2016, and the class of 2017. As I said earlier, we give these to our seniors at the end of each school year, and then we do a follow-up with them, provided at 18 months after graduation to kind of see if where they said they were going, if that's where they're going, if they still hold the same attitudes towards the school in the original survey questions. There are 18 total questions in the exit survey, ranging from future plans, academic rigor, and school safety. The first question, you'll see we have those classes that are represented in gray, black, and red for 2014, 2016, and 2017. And what areas do you plan to pursue immediately following high school? The vast majority of our students elected a 4-year college or a 2-year college. And you'll notice the 2014 data is very far way over here. The 2017 class responded probably more closely to what they actually do than the previous class had before. This was the first year that we gave that survey, so I don't know if that necessarily skewed the data a little bit or not, but this data is more reflective of where we're currently at. We had about 33% that responded that they were either going to work part-time or full-time. The ethnic origin of the survey was very representative of the graduating class for each one, and very representative of the ethnic breakdown of the district as a whole. There's our gender breakdown. Number 4, are you planning to pursue education directly related to or somewhat related to the education you received at Greenville High School? You'll notice we see an upward trend in our yes answers going from 2014 to 2017. A lot of that has to do with a lot of the things that we implemented from House Bill 5, with the pathways that we put into place, with the conferences that we have with kids, starting in the 8th grade and sitting down with parents and counselors and mapping those things out. So a lot of that we start to see trimming way very much further upward once we get to the class of 2016 and 2017. Do you feel safe at Greenville High School? 91.60% in 2017, which is up quite a bit from our 2014 class. Did high school prepare you to deal with the advancing technology in the real world? 68% answered that question affirmative, with 41% not at that particular point. Do you have adequate access to information about guidance and post-secondary choices and plans? 85% in 2017 versus 68.89% in 2014. Lots of things that have gone into place to affect that, including technology upgrades at the high school, iPads, new CTE programs that address technology needs, as well as Chromebooks and other items and devices that have been rolled out into the classrooms. Do you feel Greenville High School supplies you with materials successful to be successful in school? 81.6 on the affirmative on that particular question. Question number 9, do you feel prepared for your work in the next life experience? 73.60%. We were at high in the 2016 class at 81.61. And then we had a little bit of a dip this year, but we're up still significantly from the 2014 class that responded to that. After graduation, continuing education, we had about 78% answer either excellent or good on that particular answer in 2017, and that was up tremendously from the previous year, 2014. And then question number 11, and I think this was probably one of the most key questions in the survey, because once we see this trend, it really affects everything else. You'll see about the relationships with Greenville High School faculty and staff. In 2014, we were about 57% in the affirmative, either good or excellent. And then in 2017, that number is almost up to 80%. So we get very close up to that. And that, I think that has a huge impact the perceptions that our students have of the school. I think it has a huge impact on the perceptions that parents have of the school. And a lot of that has to do with professional development that has been rolled out from Kagan Cooperative Learning that really focuses on relationships and how that works in classrooms, engaging lessons, the way that our counselors and our assistant principals, the way that they deal and the way that our teachers deal with our students. We see a marked uptick in those years. School policies and procedures contribute to a positive school environment. Once again, we see a much more positive influence in the 2017 compared to where we were in 2014. Academic programs at high school to meet the needs of the students. Again, we're sitting somewhere around 72-73%, either good or excellent in that particular question. And overall, how would you rate your educational experience at Greenville High School? That was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 75%. To what degree did your teachers have high academic standards and demand quality? 21% in 2014, up to 42 and 40, that was around 82%, 83%. Good or excellent on that one. Providing a safe and drug-free environment. Once again, up markedly from 2014 for 66% in 2017, the effort. And number 17 is always interesting because this is how students rate themselves. So this is an opportunity for them to think about and reflect about the efforts and what they put in and what they got out of their high school experience. We had about 78% on that particular one. And how well do you perceive, or did you think that school prepared you in thinking skills such as creativity, decision-making, and problem-solving? And that was up tremendously as well from our previous years. So as we take a look at this data, we will we'll review it and bring together an action plan for you in the future as we continue to review that data and take that into account and how to develop a good game plan to address some of the needs that we know that are in this report. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Also, I'd like to add, thank you, well done.
Yes.
In the future, we contract with a firm to actually do the survey, but in the future, we're looking to see if we can get some required responses if we get below average or needs improvement, so that we'll have a little bit more data of what students are feeling when they answer at those levels.
That was very quick.
Do you know, on the first question, what areas do you plan to pursue immediately following high school, 4-year college, 2-year college, etc.? The other, do you know if that's just a checkbox says other, or is there a line? Do they have a response they can fill in there?
Yes, sir, they do. There is a line response. Most of I think around 7 of those are just checked other without putting anything. There was one that said cosmetology school. There was one that said animal worker. One said I don't know. One replied college or work. I'm not sure yet. So we've got a variety of those kinds of responses
There were
on the other
8
part.
responses total.
Yes.
8?
8, yeah, it's not many at all.
I think it's interesting. I noticed, just like you said, Wes, that in 2014, there were far more thinking they were going to go to college, 4-year, 2-year combined, than there were in 2017. And that could be, that could be a good thing. That could be, we're accomplishing what we want. One of our goals is to prepare you for a vocation, right?
Absolutely.
And to work full-time increased quite a bit. So that could be that. That's why I wondered what the other, we're about 8 or 10% wondering why the difference between 2014 and 2017. I just wonder what, there's only 9%, 8 or 9% difference in working full-time. It's just curious. That really struck me.
It's interesting when we take a look at the postgraduate survey on the 18 months out from the class of 2014. When we came back and reflected upon the data, which they reported, where did they go? I think 48% either answered a 4-year to a 2-year college. Now, we only had 86 responses, so that is not indicative of the entire class. But it's not too far off from what our actual data shows us that we get back from the state and responses and observations and conversations that we have with students. So that's not too far off. But their perceptions of their school experience also markedly went up.
Most definitely.
After they're looking back on their experience.
Right, for sure. That may be a good thing. Maybe our vocational is paying off. That's what we want
Yes, sir.
for that program.
Yes, sir.
We want them to go to college, but if they're not going to college, we want them ready for a vocation.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on several of the questions, there were nearly as many responses of average as there were excellent.
Mhm.
And I'm hopeful that as we refine the survey tool and, you know, look more closely at this in the future, that we'll be able to change that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we will reflect upon that data and come up with a plan of action where we know we have holes and things that we need to take care of.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is board discussion on video recording live stream of boards. All right, does anybody wanna?
Madam President, Dr. Liggins, Board, I was asked to put together just some information, just to help provide some more details on what's available for live streaming. So what I've done is I've basically just put together for you some product options that are available, as well as some streaming options. And so basically, there is a plethora of options that are out there, but I want to provide you with just some different price ranges and different information for you guys to have to discuss. This is the Open Broadcaster software is software that's installed on a laptop. It's completely free, but the cost that you see there would be for a laptop to be able to run all of the live streaming through an open source software. Wirecast is a paid software, and Wirecast, that is if we decided to use an existing laptop and an existing camcorder, which we do have as a district, we would just have to purchase the software alone, and that would be $600. So the reason that there's differences in all of that is I just wanted you to see the cost difference in between knowing that we do have a laptop that can run it, we do have a camcorder that can run it, and then also what the differences may be in price if we wanted to go with different options.
I'm sorry, I have a question already.
Okay.
On this Wirecast software, where we would be paying for the software, would that be a perpetual license, and would there be follow-on maintenance required annually?
This is, it's a one-time purchase, but you would have to, and you get upgrades with that, but there would come a time where you would have to repurchase the software to kind of continue going, but you normally have a few years before you would have to do that. So usually it's a one-time purchase, and you get upgrades with that. The VDU wireless device, this would use an existing camcorder that we have in the district. Basically what that does is it mounts to the top of the camcorder. It plugs directly into the camcorder itself, and it live streams without the need of a laptop. So it would stream to any of the services that I'm going to show you in just a second. So, and then AverMedia is just a different type. It's the last one over here. It's just a box that doesn't mount to anything. It just also live stream directly from the device itself. And I'm just trying to give you some different pricing options so you can kind of see what's available. Service options, you have a company called Livestream. They charge $249 a month. That's basically because you're getting a guaranteed amount of bandwidth from them, so that you have less interruptions, that sort of thing. Ustream is $99 a month. Same type of thing. They're guaranteeing a certain amount of bandwidth and connection. Facebook Live, which is free, but it's limited to 4 hours. So anything that runs over 4 hours, you have to get creative on how you're going to do that. You may have to stop broadcast and restart it, or find some ways around that. YouTube Live is also another free option that can be streamed, and all of the devices that I showed you before can stream to these services. The other thing that I put up here was just some different considerations for us as a district. One being closed captioning. Section 508 that is in effect but doesn't start being audited until January states that any production put on by a federally funded program has to have closed captioning on their videos. So that means that we would have to find a way to provide closed captioning on that. There's different circumstances in how that can be done. That can either be done through a software that would be a separate purchase. YouTube Live can add closed captioning, but it gets kind of hard because it tries to do it automatically, and so if two people talk over one another, it doesn't know what to do with that. So you actually have to have someone go back and type that in to correct any errors that it comes up with. Some other considerations to think about in this decision is just the ease of use, because we want something that we can set up quickly and easily, mobility, portability, and then something that's going to be reliable. Since all these would be able to stream live, there's always the possibility of internet outage, power outage, or one of those service providers having an outage. So, and with those prices that you saw earlier, that's where you get a little bit more reliability with the price. So, just some options for you guys to consider.
So closed captioning is going to be, like if we did a Facebook Live, it would have to have closed captioning.
If it is coming from the district, we would have to find a way to put closed captioning to it, yes.
And that's in the TEA? You said section 801, I'm not.
It's section 508.
508.
It's actually a federal regulation, just like you have section 504 and 508.
Special ed law.
Yes.
For the deaf or for deaf
Yes.
people.
I'm sorry.
Could you speak to surrounding districts?
Yes. I reached out to a few people around us. So the actual legal requirement on video streaming says that you have to have, to legally be required to live stream or to video record, you have to have 10,000 students or more. So we're well under that amount for the requirement. But I did want to reach out to some other places that had about the same population, or at least less than 10,000 students, and see what they did. And none of the ones that I had reached out to live stream or video record. So just another part to consider. You know.
Is the closed captioning required if you record as well as if you live stream?
If we post it online, yes.
Post it online in any form.
And that regulation that will be in effect does not only affect live streaming as far as like board meetings, that's any instructional documents that's used for teaching or for the purposes of putting online for the public to see. So,
Is the closed captioning requirement, I want to be clear, is it required both during the live streaming as well as posting it later, or just posting it later, but when you're live streaming, you don't need to do it?
to be honest, I'm not sure on the detail of whether. My assumption would be to say that if it's live streamed, you would have to have it, but I don't think the regulation gets detailed enough to differentiate between the two. It's usually if it's posted online, that it has to have if it's available for the public to see, it has to have a closed captioning.
Do you know of any area districts that just do audio recording and put that on their website?
I don't know of any that do that per se. One of the districts that I contacted used to video record. They stopped doing that due to some of these technicalities and started doing just audio recording. And they do it kind of like how we've done in the past, where it's just by request. And typically what we've done in the past is we just burn a CD or put it on a flash drive for them to have. But it's definitely a possibility to put that out there, if we need to do that.
So
you did. You did say that, when we're talking about live streaming, we're talking about live streaming or videotaping board meetings, right? Not classroom situations, nothing like that.
Correct. We're talking about, in this particular situation, we're talking about board meetings.
Okay. Now, you also stated that districts that had 10,000 or more had to have live streaming.
They have to at least have video recording. Maybe not necessarily live, but they do at least have to have it video recorded.
A video recording. Okay.
Have you taken a look at cost associated with the closed captioning requirements?
I have, and that's the part that can range anywhere from free and not so perfect, that has to go back and be corrected, all the way up to $11,000, which is like an auto captioning software that basically just uses voice recognition to help do the captioning for you. There are a variety of prices in between that range, but that was the most expensive one that I found. I was kind of shocked when I saw that price, but there's a wide range of options that are out there for closed captioning, and that normally is, of course, that's a third-party software that is ingested into the stream. So you're adding, complexity with that whenever you have a third party coming in. So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Polk, but should the board decide to go this route, the closed captioning option would not be if it were recorded by third parties such as Hunt County News, because they're not a government agency that's, but if it was posted on the website thereafter by us for people who did not watch live, then we would then be required to put the closed caption.
yes, so Hunt County is not required, as you said, because they're not federally funded. So anything they post doesn't have to have closed captioning. They can add that if they like, but it's not a requirement. Once we take that video recording from them and post it on the website, we would have to go back and add the closed caption to that particular meeting for everyone that we did.
If it's a student group that does it, would the closed captioning still be a requirement?
If it's posted on our site, it would have to be, yes. Yes, would be the easiest way to answer that.
That would apply if we were to acquire this technology and we wanted to use it in other applications, like to broadcast graduation ceremonies. Those would also have to have the closed captioning
Yes,
as well.
yes. Section 508 is going to add a lot to what we have to do when we are putting out a video and the requirements of that. That includes not only board meetings, but it would be any events that we record and house online has to have closed captioning. And there is the method of having someone type out the closed captioning, but that's a little bit different in the setting you're talking about versus like a board meeting that's being live streamed. So there's just different complexities based on the situation.
So without speaking for everyone else, for my opinion on this, I would like to see further options of, obviously I forget which one was $600.
We can go back.
That one, and some cost associated, the Wirecast software, and cost associated with closed captioning.
Okay.
Personally, I like the idea of streaming our videos for the public. I think that we talk a lot about transparency, but that is backing up what we're saying we're doing, and it becomes available, and it could even be used for students in the classroom to learn about their local governance. It could be used for a lot of things, so I definitely like the idea of having it broadcasted. But I would also like to see a true cost associated with if we were to do it versus someone else were to do it.
Okay.
We do not have those figures yet, do we?
No, we do not. There was such a wide range of different vendors and options for that, that I just kind of kept that in my notes for this discussion. But I can go and narrow it down to some good choices and have some different quotes even from our vendors that would be able to just give us an idea of some figures of what it would cost for us.
When you arrive at the cost, could you present that in such a way that we can compare it directly with the Hunt County offering? Is theirs annually or monthly or?
It's monthly.
Monthly, okay, which we could annualize that, that's not a big deal, but yeah. So if we're gonna be looking, whatever the recurring cost is associated with the options you present, can you do that
Sure.
so we can compare them with the
Yes.
Hunt County?
I'm not opposed even, I'm just saying if we as a board think it's too expensive or for other reasons don't want to do it, I'm not opposed to just having audio out there. I like the idea of transparency, and I like the idea of people being able to go back and look 2 months back, 3 months back at an issue and just hear it. Even if you can't see it, at least you can at least hear it. So I wouldn't be opposed to just having an audio that we could put on the website.
You will bring back to us though, Shannon, the comparative of somebody else doing the recording for us and us doing it ourselves.
Yes.
And you, okay.
I do have some concerns. I mean, what you're bringing up is that there are ways to do this so that it's accessible to the entire community, and there's ways to do it where it's not. And I think we need to think about that if we're gonna try to make it available to everyone, then, I mean, make it harder, but.
And if it is available to one, it should be available to all of our
Everybody is paying
Not
taxes,
all of
that's the
them.
point, you know.
Well, does that mean we have to get it, put it in Spanish too? I mean, you know.
Whatever it takes.
Then we get another, another.
Well, you gotta start small.
Start somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you again.
All right.
Next item on our agenda is curriculum report. Report on community and student engagement self-evaluation.
Good evening. Good evening, President Hayes, Superintendent Liggins, and Board. Thank you for allowing me to meet with you today to let you know about our community and student engagement report for the 2016-17 school year. As you know, that the student and community engagement report came out of House Bill 5 in 2013, and this allowed us to, for districts to showcase the excellence and success in campuses as well as the district and review things that we can get better. The 9 factors that we were asked to look at, and this was looked at through the campus agreement committees, which was had teachers, parents, as well as community members, and then at the district level with the district improvement committee. Fine arts, educational programs for the gifted and talented, wellness and physical education, second language acquisition, digital learning environments, the dropout prevention, 21st century workplace, and the compliance and policies. We were asked to grade ourselves as unacceptable, acceptable, recognized, and exemplary in each of the 9 factors. And this year we were asked to put a letter grade A through F against those factors as well. For the 2017-18 school year, the campuses were asked to pick the 3 things that we were exemplary doing and focus on those to get from good to great, and allowing us to look at those factors to build on for the school year. I've summarized the chart just for the 3 things that will be reported as the areas that each campus is working on. And at the bottom, Greenville ISD, we're going to focus on community and parent involvement, fine arts, and the dropout rate.
So are there any questions?
One of the things that I've asked about this rating system many times in the past is, and I've just not gotten the answer yet, and perhaps the system is there, but it's one of those things that is very subjective. Is there any unity in between districts? Is there going to be, because it is subjective, is there going to be any type of system that can give the example of where you should be for that one section? Not sure I'm clearly asking.
You are, I understand what you're asking. Coincidentally, this week, we did receive a report that this may go away, just so you know that. There are many school districts that have shared across the board a kind of a grading rubric, and they are very beneficial. And so we were going to adopt that rubric that's out there for next year. But right now, I'm not sure we're even going to see it again. But if we do, there will be a rubric, and we'll share that with you. Anything else? Can I just say thank you for welcoming me to Greenville? I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. All right. Next item on our agenda is receipt and first reading of TASB Policy Update 108.
Madam President, Superintendent Lakers Board of Trustees, we have before us tonight Policy Update 108, and not too far behind is 109. As you are aware, the 85th Legislature is recently closed, and they are busy at work and hammering out how that's going to affect all of our local and legal policies and everything else. This particular policy has some local policies that we need to take a look at, including the EF series, which has to do with instructional materials. There was some State Board of Education rule changes that eliminated some of the policies and procedures. And so there are some policies recommended for change and deletion in that particular series, as well as some legal things that incorporate in anticipation of the 85th Legislature. And so we will see Update 109 that will be scheduled for the early fall 2017. What I do have for you is a PowerPoint that I'm going to walk you through on the local policies and kind of talk through that a little bit. And then you have the local policy comparison packet, which shows you the changes, whether it was an addition, whether it was a deletion, or whether it was already in existence. And so I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of that. As I said earlier, EF, EFA, and EFAA local are policy considerations in that cycle that have been affected by those State Board of Education rules that are no longer required. And so that has allowed TASB to go in, and they've done some reorganization of those particular policies and allowed them to better organize that. There were also some policy changes at EFF, EG, and EGA, and Greenville ISD does not have any of those policies, nor do we need those, so there is nothing to discuss as far as it relates to that. EF are our instructional resources. And this is actually a policy that came from EFA that was moved to the EF location. There were some additions and things that are recommended by the American Library Association, and TASB has incorporated those into that particular policy. One of the big changes you'll see is they're replacing the term instructional materials, and now that is referred to as instructional resources. Detailing about appeal documents that is addressed in the grievance policy when there is a grievance about what materials have been adopted and what parents and students and what their rights and responsibilities are, and the guiding principles when they do have that grievance. At formal consideration, it asks that we confirm who the individual is that we want to hear that grievance. In that particular policy, on our first draft, we had down the assistant superintendent. I have an updated policy with that because we are going to go with the superintendent or designee. And I have a peg right over here. I'll hand that out to you as soon as I get done. I apologize. But that's the recommendation for you, and you will see that in that particular update and as we go to the second reading. EFA, this one has just been removed to EA, or EF, excuse me, that's the policy we just took a look at. As I go back, are there any questions as it relates to EF? It's fairly straightforward. Okay. EF, that was the one that got moved. EFAA, which is our instructional materials allotment. That policy is no longer required by the State Board of Education and is recommended for deletion. There is a one in there that says board action shall approve the final selection and ratify the district's certification of instructional materials. That is still located in EF legal, EFA legal, excuse me. So that is still a requirement of the board and the responsibility of the district. What it does take away is the part where we are required to have a committee for every time we want to adopt something using IMA funds. So if we wanted to go and use our instructional materials allotment funds just for one or two items, that wouldn't necessarily take an entire committee to go through. That alleviates some of that. EHDB, there are some revisions to that as it relates to credit by examination with prior instruction. There was some clarifying language that was added for students that failed to earn credit or a final grade due to excessive absences. As you are aware, students are required to attend school 90% of the time that instruction is offered. When they go over that and they don't earn their credits in high school, then this gives the principal the authority to offer that as a remediation. Most of our students go through a credit by examining, credit recovery program, which requires them to go back through the content to make sure that they can demonstrate that mastery. Any questions on the EHDB?
Something just hit me when you said that about the committee not being required for
Yes.
for smaller considerations.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that beneficial to not have more than one? Does that mean that a single person could make a decision on selecting an educational resource?
It could. An example that you're going to see in a minute is our CTE materials that are going to come up, and we use an extensive committee to go through that particular process. That's probably still going to be our common practice, just because that's what we've always done in the past. And generally on smaller purchases, we're not going through IMA funds to make those kinds of purchases, just because it's generally not beneficial to use it on something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. EIEL local is all about charter school applications through the school district. Anybody can apply for a charter application through the district, and this clarifies where those documents are housed, how they go to those documents. There was some language change from the superintendent's office is where those documents are housed to the central administration office. So there was some clarifying language there to make it not as confusing where people could turn to if they wanted to go through that particular process. Any questions on EL local? That was the last of the local updates. There are, of course, various legal updates that are through there that we are required to change once we go through the adoption process. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I really don't have any questions, but I did want to let you know that I really like the presentation that you can put in the board book for us to see all of these. So thank you for that.
Second reading will be right around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do that right now?
Next item on our agenda is the report on community, no, I'm sorry, we just did that. The finance report, 2017-2018 preliminary budget presentation.
Madam President, Dr. Liggins, Board of Trustees, tonight is our second discussion of our 17-18 budget. This particular presentation is simply going to solidify a few things that we talked about last month, and then we're going to kind of narrow it down as we go forward. I will want to say, first off, that this is simply a disclaimer statement that everything we're doing today is simply for discussion. It can change, it probably will not. But it is subject to property tax discussion, property tax evaluation. We're going to see a slide on that in just 1 second. You saw the slide last month. It's simply our sources of revenue. We get property tax money, which is our local sources, to the tune of about $20 million. Our state funding based on ADA is to the tune of almost $20 million. And then our special ed funds bring in about $500,000. So what we have to work with is about $40,235,000. So having said that, we know our revenues, and now we know where we can allocate our expenses. Here's our functional categories. I don't want to talk down to you. You're quite familiar with this, but just for informational purposes, here's all of our useful functional categories that we use monthly. We spend tons of money, if you will, over 60%, if you will, in classroom. So 11 is classroom, then our libraries 12, 13 teacher training, 21 is instructional specialists, 23 campus principal staff, 31 counselors, 33 health services, 34 transportation, big issue right there, 35 food service, 36 extracurricular, mostly considered athletics, if you will. And then we go to 41 administration, 51, another big area, facilities, which is our maintenance, operations, repair. 52 security, 53 data processing, 61 is simply daycare, 71 debt service. We do have some debt in the general fund. 81 construction, which we're ongoing right now with our STEM building. That will conclude this year, and quite possibly we will not see that next year. 93 shared services, which is another deaf education program out of our special ed program. Intergovernmental and 99 is where we pay our property tax collection and appraisal services. So here's two different columns. If you'll kind of pay specific attention, you'll see where we were in 16-17 on the budget and where we think we're going to go. There is a little less money that we're budgeting for this year. Hopefully our property taxes based on appraisals will increase. If we see that, it would be towards the end of the year, which would transfer into fund balance, which would give us more money going into 18-19. But currently we're looking at about, you see these numbers right here. There's an instruction, about 60% of our budget, going all the way down to 99, and so we know about where we spend historically. We know what we're going to do in the current year. Our debt will go up as we go forward, and so on and so forth. So having said that, I want you to see just a little bit of where we are and where we are projecting this thing to end up. Then we talked about potential payroll increases. So we saw these same three examples last month. I have revised example number 1 to show simply 2, 2.5, and 3 if it's on a percent basis. Example 2 you're familiar with is a subjective number currently on whether it's professional or paraprofessional. And then example number 3 is identical as number 2, except that it's a lump sum payout. So Dr. Liggins will solidify those over the next month or so and bring those to y'all for your knowledge. Now, as we know going forward, this is a breakdown simply of where our payroll is compared to the whole budget. We know that we're about $32.5 million currently. We know we're going to go to 33.25 next year, and that just breaks down where's our payroll considered into the whole budget. It's about 83. We'll transfer about 83% of our general fund budget. Here is simply a itemization of what I anticipate our discussions to be. Tonight we're on the 20th. We have a 7/18 potential board meeting. We'll have another work session. We're going to get right down probably to the nitty-gritty and have some numbers solidified by functional category. We will have another, I'll show a presentation that has where our current revenues are, so y'all see that in your monthly financial statements, but I'm going to give you some, what I think to be some pretty accurate numbers. So when we put money in 11, 12, 51, that we will have a really good idea of where we need to be. And then we're going to culminate down in our August meeting of adopting the budget and then subsequent tax rate. Here's a pretty interesting slide. It's our certified values. So if we look at our certified values that came in on 5/31, those are after preliminary appeals. Now they're ongoing some formal appeals. So that number has dropped from a little over $2 billion to just under. So after the formal approval, appeals are going on currently, that will happen it has happened June 1st until July the 20th. About July the 20th, they will work on certifying those values, and then we will see that towards the end of July. By the end of July, we should see some hard and fast numbers on what we think our property values will be. And then there's our current ADA situation, which is where we get our student foundation payment. we're sitting at about 48.98 at this time. Any questions, please?
On that last slide, have we come to a number that we feel comfortable with for 2017-18 yet?
We're planning on that 48.98 on our budget. I feel quite comfortable. That's our actuals. If it grows, wonderful. That'd be more revenue in the 18-19 year. But currently, that's where we're sitting, and we anticipate that number to stay pretty steady.
If you go back one slide, what is the dollar amount that's required to pay 1 year interest on all our bonds, our debt?
Well, what we have in the general fund is maintenance tax note. It's not bonded debt. It's maintenance tax notes, and
I'm thinking of the INS. I'm wondering about the INS.
okay, I'm sorry. The INS and the food service fund has not been presented here. The INS is about 5.2 million, and that's what that number will be. I mean, it's a one line item, principal and interest, 5.2 million. Food service is the same thing. We approved a food service Chartwell's renewal contract that had about $2.5 million a couple of months ago, and that number you will approve that number. It will be in here next month, both food service and debt service. But they're simple one line items. This is more complicated, split between all the functional categories. But debt will be, bonded debt, INS 599, will be about 5.2 million. We know exactly what our principal and interest payments are.
Right.
And there'll be some fees, and so
it should be pretty.
We know
easy.
exactly what that number will be.
So it's easy to calculate the
Absolutely.
INS rate once we know this number is
So
certified values.
let me just make a general statement. I'm assuming you're making that assumption because you might want to reduce that rate?
I think if property values go up, we would have to, wouldn't we?
Okay. Well, that is something for you to discuss. I will provide y'all soon through Dr. Liggins what the amortization schedule is. In the next 10 years, it gets drastically, it increases drastically. You know, principal is about 100,000 next month, 110,000 next month. We're paying all this interest. On about 2020, that baby jumps to about 2 million in principal. It'd be my opinion, it is y'all's budget to do what you want to do. But when 2020 arrives and 2025-ish, those numbers are going to drastically rise. And there's a fund balance in there now. It can build for multiple purposes, to pay off debt early, pay off certain bonds early. I understand property values going up, and I also understand the household impact. But when you look at your amortization schedule, I'm not so sure that would be good.
I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question about that, actually. It's my understanding that we received, I gotta think about how I'm gonna state this, but we received the $72 million, but only bonded or financed a smaller dollar figure than that.
Because of a premium.
Correct.
Yes.
But we have an obligation to allow, it's a liability and an obligation that the lenders have to receive a certain amount of interest in order for.
Well, they sold
them
those
to make
bonds
whole.
on the open market. When those bonds went for sale, it's in a bidding war, if you will. And so it goes at the market rate. So State Farm, Frost Bank buys these bonds, and they buy it at whatever to be a marketable rate for a 30-year bond.
The question that I think I'm trying to get to, is there gonna be any issue if we try to start paying off?
Some of them will not allow that.
Okay.
Some of them,
So
they
when
go
we
into
get the
escrow. We
amortization
put the money,
schedule,
I'm sorry.
When we get the amortization schedule, if we can also get that information along with it. So
I can go to our investment banker and retrieve that. That data will, if those bonds are not callable, if you will, they are put into escrow with a third party. We pay that, if you will, sets into another fund until it matures. We can buy that back. I will give you some data on that.
Are we limited in any way by law, what our INS rate can be? If, for instance, if we have $5 million is what our payment is annually for debt, and 20 cents, let's just say, raises that with these values, are we limited, can we make the INS rate 28% if we want to?
You maximize by law at 50 cents. You can put it 50 cents and let it go. Build up fund balance, pay off this debt, blah, blah, blah.
I just want to make sure I understand the philosophy behind the proposed budget that we're looking at tonight.
For the general fund?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, so we're looking at an increase in appraised value,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're assuming constant enrollment. You're not assuming any increase in enrollment in the budget.
I'm using our actual numbers that we see as ADA.
Okay.
So that
From
would be a
2016.
conservative. Yes, ma'am.
From 2016, 2017.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so with an increase in property value and constant enrollment, that's resulting in a lower total budget number for next year. Is that what you're saying?
When you get, say, property taxes go up, we collect more money on the property tax side, you're gonna get less foundation money.
Uh-huh.
It's just where they are in school finance today. It used to be kind of a multiple factor of different things, now it's simply, it's a one-for-one trade.
And you have a formula that you are using to calculate that
The
decrease?
state has that, and we populate some numbers in there, and it spits out what our anticipated state aid is. Yes, ma'am?
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think that's important to repeat though. So just because our tax values go up here locally and we send it to Austin does not mean Austin sends us back more money.
That's exactly right. The higher the property tax are, property appraisals are, we get property value, but taxes based on that value, the lower the state aid is.
I think there's some misunderstanding about that.
Well, that has changed in the last 5 years to be more, it is a fact. The higher property, the higher local you get, the less the state you get.
I believe Dr. Wiggins has already answered this, but I cannot remember. What was the reason for the maintenance budget going down? It went from 20% to 17. And I know there's a reason. I just was going to write it down because I didn't want to.
Are you? I'm sorry.
It was an increase in personnel
Okay.
spending. Dollars, yeah.
Just gonna throw this out there as just a personal feeling about that. I feel like we ended up in a situation where we had to dedicate a chunk of our bond to rectifying deferred maintenance situations on our facilities. And it gives me angst to decrease that. And I know that there's more involved in that number than just maintenance, but the thought of decreasing the percentage to maintenance, I would really want to know more about why we're proposing to do that and feel good about it. And as an alternative, I would hope that maybe if we do end up seeing a higher enrollment that results in a higher revenue stream, that rather than putting all of that into fund balance, that we consider putting some of that back into maintenance.
Without question. If I may interject here, when you're talking about bond, we are not talking about this budget. Okay, I'm sorry, I want to make sure those are mutually exclusive subjects. That's bond cash, and we have bank cash. Okay.
If you look at the expenses by function, the 2 pages of comparing last year, comparing 2016-17 to next year, 2017-18, it appears like we've reduced every function budget by about 1.4%. Am I seeing that right? Absolutely. So across the board, it was across the board reduction.
Payroll increases cause less allocation. And so that allocation has to be, we can raise, make our instruction higher, but something else is going to suffer. So that's simply a pro rata share basis, if you will.
Function 11, is payroll embedded in there?
Absolutely. Everything in the classroom, John. Everything that has to do within the classroom, instruction, and there's payroll, there's supplies, there's travel, there's training.
Right, so, but every function went down 1.4%, yet payroll went up. Okay.
And that's
Payroll is just a-
before raise. Is this before a projected raise?
After. After it goes in, that's the money that's allowable to be spent, and that's how it's going, appears to shake out.
Which of the three options did you use when you put that
Number
number?
one.
Option one.
2%.
2%?
I believe that was the number. 2%, 750,000. So see this guy right here, 2%, 750? That's the difference from this number to this number, 750,000. That requires that number to go up 83%.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything else?
One more question. Why 0 in the construction class, in the construction line of the budget?
Because we'll be through with the STEM by August the 31st, and we don't anticipate any other construction. We will anticipate maintenance, repairs, and operations, those type of things, but to truly construct the building where we want to itemize and track those costs, 81 is for that purpose. I don't anticipate us building another building or remodeling another building sufficient enough to keep up with, $3 million.
So if there's a delay in the STEM, gym, Leslie asked about that scheduling earlier, could that alter the budget then? If we
Well, you have a 258,000 plus the 15,000 not to exceed, to take you up to 253 to $253,000 contract with a 15,000 not to exceed, right? So it takes you up to 268. If that number changes past 268, yes, we'll come back to, or pay it out of 51. That would be your call, but we would want to track that out of 81, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Anything else?
I had a question about the 2%
Yes, ma'am.
pay raise. This is across the board pay raise
Yes,
for
ma'am.
all employees.
Yes, ma'am.
We asked you, I think at one time about a 3% raise. What would that do?
About $1 million. So that would take us to about 84%.
84% of our
Of
total.
all the money that comes in, 84, 85 cents on the dollar goes to payroll. The other 15 would be supporting construction and maintenance.
Okay.
Now, that might not be a valid discussion. To me, that's a valid discussion. That is a large percentage of the budget. Is it accurate? Most companies operate at a 70 plus 75% number, some at 80. So it's not uncommon, just letting you know.
The state is mandating for wanting to pay $8,000 pay raise per teacher. Will this 2% pay raise encompass that $1,000?
Two discussions on this. There's a step increase for a teacher. So a teacher goes from a brand new teacher, he's called a 0. When they go to a 1, there's a salary schedule that takes them from 0 to 1, and let's just say it's $500. They will get their step increase plus 2%.
The question I believe you're asking is about the action currently in the legislature, correct? There's not enough information as of now. It appears, we're not sure if it's going to be to the minimum teacher salary that's of the state, which we're well above already. We're not sure if it's going to be, just the state's going to give according to your teacher enrollment or how many teachers you employ, $1,000 extra for that. It's so bland right now. I mean, there's some question as to what it will be, but they haven't decided yet what it will be. And it hadn't been approved yet. It's just the governor's called them back to discuss it.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay. Next item, action and discussion items. Selection of a TASB convention delegate.
President Haynes, it is my recommendation that the Board of Trustees select an official voting delegate and an alternate for the 2017 TASB Delegate Assembly in Dallas, Texas October 7th, 2017, as provided by GISD bylaws.
Okay. Do we have, let's start this off. I said, do we have a volunteer or, John, you're.
I would love to be a delegate.
Would you?
Absolutely.
I nominate John to be our delegate.
Second.
Okay, well, what about an alternate?
Has everybody been
Yeah, I think everybody has.
Does anybody have to go to convention that, you know, rather than having one of us go, I'm planning to go anyway? Like somebody who doesn't get to go to some leadership?
Love that move.
All right. I'll tell you what.
I love that move.
I'll tell you what, I will volunteer to be the alternate delegate.
I nominate Ann to be our alternate.
Okay, so we want to, you nominated John to be our delegate and to be our alternate delegate.
Yes, ma'am.
For, at the October convention in Dallas.
You won't have to go if I break my leg.
Please don't. All right, we have a motion and a second, naming our delegate and our alternate delegate for the 2017 convention in Dallas. Is there, we have a motion and a second. Who seconded? Okay, is there any additional discussion? There being none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is, we're gonna skip item B because we've already done that. And C, consider approval of resolution of the Board of Trustees approving to support the creation of a statewide online education and advising to assist students in making post-secondary and career plans, including certification tracking.
Yes, Madam President, it's my recommendation that we move forward with that motion, or with that recommendation, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a request to accept the proposed resolution as read as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Adele.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Overstreet. Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Let's vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item D, consider approval of the GISD strategic plan. Dr. Goodrich, give us.
Yes, ma'am. The strategic plan has met throughout the 2016-17 school year. That committee was comprised of administration, community members, teachers, and others. It is the committee ultimately came to 5 broad concepts they would like to focus on in the strategic plan over the next 5 years. One being teaching and learning, one focusing on funding and finance, one on human resources, another on facilities, and a final one on communications. Madam President, it is my recommendation that we move forward with a motion and a second to accept the strategic plan as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Lickens. We have a request to accept the 2017 GISD strategic plan as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Stanford. We have a motion and a second to accept the 2017 GISD strategic plan as presented. Is there any discussion?
First of all, thank you to everybody that worked on this. What a benefit to us to have so many people from the community involved and giving such thoughtful input and suggestions. I just had a few sort of grammatical things I'd like to see altered to the draft that we have in front of us tonight. And nothing that changes the content of the 5 categories, goals, or the supporting objectives underneath them. But when we're looking at the vision statement, I'd like to see it re-punctuated to say, we educate today, period, you succeed tomorrow, period. I think that conveys a more definitive message than the 3 ... that are included in there. And I don't think it's necessary to include Greenville ISD ... I would suggest striking that from the vision statement. And then when we're titling it, if we could just change the title to say Strategic Plan 2017 to 2022, I think that makes it clear that we're talking about a 5-year plan and not a 1-year plan. 2017 sounds like a 1-year plan. And then when we're looking inside at the 5 categories, the goal statement that begins each of those sections, I feel like that should have a period at the end of it. It sounds like a complete sentence to me in every case. So if we could just be careful with the punctuation, I think that's important. My last suggestion would be on this beautiful brochure that we're planning to use to market our plan and to communicate it to the community. If we could just add a little blurb somewhere in here that explains that this is a 5-year strategy for the district, and that some of the things that are spelled out in here will be accomplished every year. Some of them will take multiple years to accomplish. Just kind of clarifying to the general member of our community who gets this put in their hand what we're really saying. We're going to, how we're saying we're going to accomplish these things. So I don't think we need to be specific about what will take a year or what will take multiple years, but just conveying the notion that the things that are mentioned in here we'll be working toward them over the next 5 years. Some of them at a fast rate, some of them will take a slower rate to accomplish. If that makes sense.
I just wanted to add, I was one of the 3 of the board's representatives on here, and just to clarify publicly, we have these broad areas, but that's not where it ends. There's another step, and then another step to put the strategic plan, to break out the steps, that are going to be undertaken to reach these goals. But that's not something that we would approve at the board level. That's something that would then be passed along to administration and the people that are involved in the action plans. So at the board level, we would approve it at this level and get updates on the progress being made throughout.
And this strategic plan, when I was thinking about this draft brochure, it may be wise to say strategic plan 2017-2022, or whatever, year 1 under there. And let people know that it is this is a 5-year process, and this is a fluid document. It isn't, I don't think it's ever intended to pin the professionals who make sure that we achieve these goals, to pin them down to a one set. This thing may change. Next year it may change, because we may have our budget slashed. And we still have some goals that we're gonna achieve, even if we don't get the 15 cents, you know, for our budget thing. We still have things that we're going to achieve. We are not quitters, we do not quit. So we've got this as guidelines, we've got these things as guidelines, right? So, but this is a fluid document. It's, in my view, it may change every year. The vision won't change, but the way we get there might.
I don't have a problem with the ... being changed, but I still like the fact of having Greenville ISD name in front of this, okay?
Then maybe it should say Greenville ISD educates today, period, you succeed tomorrow. Just so it's a complete thought.
Okay. Because I think that, again, that shows us as having ownership of it completely. Okay? When our name is attached to it, it's just about okay.
I like what you said, Aaron, about punctuation and the periods being there. And I'd like to just also say, if there are any of these sentences that aren't actually complete sentences because there's a word missing here or there, I do see one here, let's make all these a complete sentence, a true sentence, when we do these little minor updates.
Also, I'd like to clarify that this is a marketing brochure, basically, or a promotional brochure for the benefit of our community, but it's got the exact same content, I believe, as this document that we were handed. It's the product of the planning, strategic planning committee's process, right, Kim?
I think the only thing that I would say regarding this plan, historically, and I'm just going to restate this, but I think that you are all fully aware of how I feel about this. Historically, I have felt like measurable goals have been an issue, things that we can quantify have been an issue. And so I'm fine with approving this, this plan as presented, but I do look forward to incorporating some of those quantifiable goals that we establish in the presentations and things that will follow in the coming months.
I think it's a great time for us to dovetail the strategic plan and board goals and superintendent goals so that all of those things don't seem like separate entities, that they are all, we're using the same words, talking about the same things, and we know, everybody knows where they are in that, what their role is in that process. I think that's great.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept this document as our strategic planning one with some minor changes, some changes that, did we do that?
To the document, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do we need to amend the motion so that it...
No, we're not actually approving the document, we're approving the content of the 5 over line.
Okay.
I don't know what to call them now.
I just want to make sure that...
Yeah, the document itself, we'll make, your comments were duly noted, and we'll make sure that it's a perfect document before release. But we're, the overall content is what we're approving.
Okay. That works.
Motion stays? All right. We've got a motion and second and a whole lot of discussion. So, let's vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. I agree with you. I think they did an excellent job. All the citizens, all the people from all kind of walks of life that we had in here, coming up with these things, they did a wonderful job. Next item on our agenda is to consider approval of the resolution for schools and libraries universal service E-rate bonds. for 2017.
Madam President, Dr. Liggins, and the board, this is one of the items we get to talk about that and approve hopefully that isn't spending money, it's getting discounts. So the E-rate program, this particular resolution, the purpose is to inform the board of our E-rate services and determine if we want to continue to participate in the program. This resolution authorizes the filing of Form 471 applications for the funding year of 2017-2018 and the payment of our portion of any services that are rendered as part of the E-rate program. This particular resolution does not commit us to spend any money. It's just authorizing us to do so if we so choose during the 2017-2018 school year. The particular resolution that you see shows on the left column, our application numbers for E-rate, our discounted or pre-discounted amounts for these particular services, which I'll talk about in a second. The E-rate amount that we are projected to get for those services, and then our portion is in the far right column that we pay for these services. E-rate is separated into Category 1 and Category 2 services. Category 1 services are any internet service going to our buildings. So when you think of Juice, Time Warner Cable, or Spectrum, any of those types of services, that's a Category 1 service. Category 2 services is considering how we get internet to staff and students. And so that's our access points, all of our wiring, switches, that's considered a Category 2 service. And you'll see why that matters in just a second. What I did is I put up here our actual spend numbers for all of our bids that were put out. The top 3 are services that are actually on contracts. So these services haven't changed since last year. This is just hopefully I'm trying to give you more information so you understand where this money is going and what it's used for. And so what you see here is the first line item there is our AT&T bill. This is for a voice service. So your just standard voice phone lines, fax lines, that's what the service is going to. And it does show our monthly and annual eligible amounts for E-rate. Notice the second to the last column shows our E-rate percentage at 20%. E-rate has been slowly phasing out funding for voice services. This will, to my knowledge, will be the last year that we receive E-rate funding for voice. So next year that would be 0% and we would have to cover the full cost of voice services. The second item is our just Juice internet bill. And so you can see the E-rate percentage on that is 8%. So they're paying 80% of our Juice bill. AT&T is also a separate internet provider for us, and they pay 80% of that bill as well. The bottom item is a voice item that I added in for this year, and this is because we added a school, we have to be able to allow so many concurrent phone calls, and because we use a voice over IP phone service, we have to have enough data to be able to allow people to call at the same time. And because we added school, I got a little worried about where we're going to be at that, so I added this voice service into E-rate for next year. Even though it's 20%, it's something, so it helped us out, you know, and that is also through AT&T. So that's kind of a breakdown of what those different bids are. So the first one, if you go back here, the top portion of that is the top application, and the bottom part is the bottom application. So you can see our total share for next year being roughly $77,000 for all those services, as opposed to $186,000 for those services.
Maybe I'm just getting all confused here, but I thought we were, the motion that you're asking for asks for approval of the E-rate, right? Or Form Form 471.
Well,
With no money being spent.
this is simply approving us to use E-rate to pay this amount. This amount's already been budgeted in previous year and will be in the coming year. But in order for us to utilize the E-rate, it requires board approval. And so, so we're simply saying so that we can apply for the E-rate rates, we need your approval.
Okay, so what you're saying is once we approve this, that, we commit you to spend the money, you can do it with those discount rates.
Yes, it's saying that we can do it. It's not saying that we necessarily have to, or that things may not change. It's just saying that we can use the rate.
What if I tell me something?
Yeah, something shorted out up there. Yeah, just there's a red button on the front. Just kill the whole thing.
Are we still recording?
Yes.
We're still recording?
Yes.
Okay. We got paid. I move.
Really file Form 71 for the 2017-2018
school year and the payment of the applicant's share upon approval of funding and receipt of services. I've got a motion, do we have a second?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Mr. Grant. We have a motion and a second to approve the filing of Form 471 for the 2017-2018 school year and the payment of the applicant's share upon approval of funding and receipt of services. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the second reading and consideration of adoption of revised CPC local policy office manual.
Madam President, Superintendent Liggins, Board of Trustees, this is the second reading. This is the second reading of CPC local, reading adoption. As you might recall, we had reorganizations, personnel changes that would require this to be changed from the superintendent to the chief financial officer to the records management officer. Simple change that we would then submit to the Texas Archives Commission. Administration recommends that we approve this and adopt it tonight.
This was just taking out the superintendent
Yes, ma'am.
as the responsible party and making it the chief financial officer.
Yes, ma'am. This is the second reading. Reorganization, personnel changes, and changes in the responsibilities of the recommendation.
Would you like us to adopt it on the second reading?
Yes, ma'am. Since it's not a long policy packet, and cumbersome and lots of things, pretty straightforward.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Brown, we have a motion and a second to adopt CPC local board policy to change the records management officer position listed to the chief financial officer. Is there any discussion?
This is as recommended by TASB, correct?
No, this is as recommended by board administration. We have a lot of flexibility on who you name for that position.
It just didn't have a little X listed that I could see that identified it that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Superintendent's probably a fairly generic term that goes out and recommended by TASB. When we change that to the chief financial officer, that should click that X on over, make that a unique policy for the district. That's my understanding.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Okay, next item on our agenda is consider approval of the K-5 STEM school name.
Yes, Ms. Harris going to do a presentation.
Yes, the show must go on. Madam President, Dr. Liggins, and Board of Trustees, let's name a school. So in late April, we formed a committee that was made up of parents, staff, and community members tasked with coming up with a name for our new STEM school. And if you don't mind, I'd like to take just a moment to recognize those committee members. I know some of them are in the audience, so just when I call your name, just stand so we can acknowledge that you were a part of that. So committee members were Stephanie Leach, James Evans, Millie Edwards, Karen Turner, Vicki Thomason, Roger Livingston, Emily Duke, Lane Russell, Lauren Bootzel, Ashley Antuna, Stacy Klutz, Mary Calderilla, and Reggie Washington. And those committee members put in a lot of research and nominations on their own time to do that. So we're really grateful to have them be a part of that. So we first met on May 9th to discuss the school atmosphere, what the school was going to be like, some naming criteria, like we all felt very strongly that it needed to have a tie-in to STEM and be relevant to what we're going to be teaching at the school. As well as the fact that the mascot of the school is the Rocketeers and kind of gave some preferential treatment to those involved in aerospace programs. We also decided that the top 3 names that we chose as a committee would be put to the community of Greenville to vote and choose ultimately the name that we present to you tonight. So at that first meeting, we talked it all out and made some initial nominations. And then, after some extended discussion via email and phone calls, we met again on May 17th to choose the top 3 names for the vote for the community. And we narrowed it down to Catherine G. Johnson, Sharon Easton McCullough, and May Jemison. And you have some brief bios in your action sheet in your board book tonight. Of each of those people. So, the voting ran from May 22nd to May 29th, and during that time, we had about 883 community members vote, and by a 46% margin, the community voted to name the new school the Catherine G. Johnson STEM Academy. And so, as you know, Catherine Johnson is a physicist and mathematician who contributed greatly to the U.S. Aeronautics Space program as a human computer for NASA. So she calculated flight trajectories and launch windows and emergency return paths for a lot of space shuttle programs, such as Project Mercury and the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing. She's received countless awards, and in 2016, you probably recognize the name from the movie Hidden Figures, where they discussed her life along with a few other women who contributed to the NASA program. She is still living. She's 99 years old and will be 100 next year. And in the picture, we have her being awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Obama. So it's a recommendation of the community of Greenville that we name the new STEM school the Catherine G. Johnson STEM Academy. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I think we need a motion to approve the name of the K-5 STEM school as Catherine G. Johnson STEM Academy.
I'm honored to make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rose Reed. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Stanford. Is there any additional discussion?
I would like to thank the community members and volunteers that really, I stepped in on one of the meetings and they were really deep in discussion, so I know there was a lot of discussion that was went into finalizing the final three. I'd also like to record for thanking. How many votes did we have?
883, and it was just that 1 week. So the 22nd to the 29th was all they had open to vote on that, and it was a pretty good turnout.
Thank our community as well for being interested in that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, when you make it available, you do, and you don't have to. I just wanted to make a comment on, we form a lot of committees, you know, we just talked about the strategic plan itself, but I really appreciate making, the survey or the voting available online to the community. I feel like, as she said, with 800 people signing on to vote, it really, speaks to the involvement of who all we reached with by doing it that way.
I'd like to add on to that, it's not related to this agenda item, but I would like to see us use that tool to gather community input on a variety of things throughout the year. We can't go wrong asking people to tell us what they think and then doing something with it.
Okay, remember that when we get through voting on the motion and the second, then we already have a vote going on now. Remember that after we vote. All right. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is the consider approving the use of instructional material allotment funds to purchase instructional materials for the STEM Academy.
Good. That's not working.
It's not on, so
Okay,
just,
that's
you'll
all
have to
right. I
talk
can talk
loud.
very loud. I have a good teacher voice. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Liggins, and members of the Board of Trustees. I am here tonight seeking approval for the purchase using instructional materials allotment funds to buy some textbooks, online access for those textbook materials for our new STEM Academy so that they'll have some materials to use when they get there and the school opens. As a reminder, the instructional materials allotment was created under the 82nd Texas Legislature. They changed the way they funded textbooks way back in 2011. And we are given a per pupil allotment, every biennium, and that money is put in a fund for which we can purchase instructional materials. It is set aside specifically for the purchase of instructional materials. The amount, again, is determined by annually. The following options are available to purchase instructional materials for the 2017-2018 school year prior to our legislative session ending and our allotment biennium being assigned. Currently, that has not been assigned yet. Our legislation session just ended, and we're going into a consecutive session. We have two options, though, in order to prepare and fill the school with books. Option 1 is that we can use unexpended funds from previous years. Anything that we don't expend in the IMA account rolls over, so that we can use that as we move forward. Or we can choose to spend the money that we don't have or know how much we're going to get before we get it and reimburse ourselves after the fact. That is not the option that we are discussing tonight. We are only seeking to spend funds that we currently have available for our use, the unexpended funds that we have been sort of tweaking and setting aside. We are looking to purchase for the 4 content areas, math, science, English, language arts, reading, and social studies. The materials that we are going to be purchasing are current adopted materials that are sitting on each of the other 5 elementary campuses. So we're just looking to provide equitable services and access to the same types of materials and instructional resources for our teachers and students to have available to them. These were adopted and previously approved by the board during the adoption cycles. As you can see in your packet, there is a requisition summary. This is where I can go in. There's 2 ways to order out of our system. It's called EMAC. There's 2 ways to order. I can ask TEA to send us a disbursement. We can buy from a vendor, get a quote, and then I send the information to TEA and they disperse the funds so that we can expend those. Or we can order some of the materials directly through the EMAC system where TEA pays those vendors directly. And for this, we're requesting to have TEA pay those vendors directly out of our fund on our behalf. We're requesting the EMAT requisition is for $156,372.12. I've written the action item not to exceed and just rounded the numbers up to make them just a little bit easier. It also allots for if we recheck our numbers and we go up 1 or 2 kids, then we can adjust that accordingly. Any questions?
We have a request for authorized payment of instructional materials, allotment funds via TEA to publishers and or via GISD instructional materials allotment disbursements in an amount not to exceed $290,170 for the items referenced above. Do I have a motion?
I'm saying $156,000.
I've got 290,000.
Go back one. You're on the next agenda item.
Okay.
I got 2.
You're doing 2. I just read your second one. One of the reasons is because I cannot find that one. We have a request to authorize payment for construction materials allotments fund by TEA to publishers in an amount not to exceed $156,373 for the items referenced above.
So moved.
We have a motion, Mr. Brown. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Stafford, second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Is that going to be enough cushion, just a few cents?
Yes, ma'am, I do believe it is at this time. We are actually going to purchase those items so that we fill a classroom of 22 students. So even if we reach capacity, and we're not pulling materials off of the other campuses. So we will have enough materials on the other campuses if we need 1 or 2 here or there that we can exchange between campuses.
Any other questions? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now, this next one.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll move forward. We are also in an adoption year for career and technical education materials and languages other than English. That would be our foreign languages, American Sign Language, French, Spanish, whatever of those foreign languages that we teach. Again, we're asking to use instructor materials allotment funds that were created back during the 82nd legislature. These are just repeat slides of what I just went over. Proclamation 2017 was put out by the State Board of Education. They put out bids to furnish new instructional materials for the CTE and the LOTE, or languages other than English. The materials are submitted to publishers for consideration and then vetted by the State Board of Education. Was approved, we take and use these vetted materials. We figure the State Board of Education thinks that these are good materials, then we vet them ourselves as well to verify that they are, and then when we can, we go with these materials because they come to us at the best possible price. There are numerous subjects in this adoption. So many so that I couldn't create a nice little list to put up here on the board. I did provide you with the 5-page list in your packet. We do not teach all of the courses listed on this 5 pages. These are all of the available courses for which materials were called for. We did put together a selection committee. All teachers in those career and tech ed and languages other than English departments did have an opportunity to review materials and provide input. The state allows the review of those materials. They provide online access where teachers can go in and even try some of the lessons out and can really peruse those materials in their classrooms through the adoption process. We also sent a selected group of teachers to a vendor fair that was held at Region 8. Region 8 invited in all of the vendors that had materials up for adoption so that they were all in one location. They provided a full day for people to come in and ask questions and to get to actually see a hands-on view and get a walkthrough. So we selected teachers from each of those departments listed there. They solicited questions from their department members, got answers to those questions, and brought information back to those teachers. As representatives, they brought answers back to questions. We are seeking to expend funds not to exceed $290,170. Out of this, you'll find in your packet a requisition summary for funds that are to be paid direct to publishers from the Texas Education Agency in the form of an EMAC request for $220,608.85. We are asking for a disbursement for funds to be paid to a publisher by Greenville ISD, so we'll get a disbursement and we will write the check to the publisher. This is going to Texas Tech University, to their Center for Family and Consumer Sciences in the amount of $500. A disbursement for funds to be paid to the publisher by Greenville ISD for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. Those are for Spanish materials, or our foreign language that we teach in Spanish for all 4 of the years, 4 of the levels that we teach, for $55,372.50. And a disbursement for funds to be paid to a publisher by GISD of Pearson in the amount of $13,688.09. The amount to Pearson is for a political science book and materials, and that is taught through the Career and Technical Education Department. All of these materials are being purchased for the lifetime of the adoption, which is traditionally 8 years, unless the state then comes back and extends that. The only exception to that is the $500 expense. That is a yearly fee that we will incur annually as long as we decide to keep those materials, and that was not available to us to purchase for the lifetime of the adoption, as Texas Tech sells it on a yearly basis.
I have just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Your last bullet point there is, as a reminder, we're using carriover funds.
Yes.
My question is it typical for us, because we're looking at about 400,000, a little over 400,000 between the 2 of these with carryover funds. Is it typical for us to have that much in carryover at this time of the year?
I'm not certain that there's a typical amount to have left. It's really based off of student needs and district needs, how we purchase our materials. We have had significant growth 2 years in a row. And there is an application that is available for us to apply for through the Texas Education Agency to get an increased amount of allotment funds. And I have applied for that 2 years in a row, and we have received almost an additional, I believe, $1 million. Okay. Close to $1 million. So it was through some of that that we were able to have those types of carryover funds. Okay. So the state has limits as to what these funds can be spent on. So we can't just go out and buy any old thing with them. They're truly set aside for instructional materials.
When would these funds expire?
These funds expire at the end of this biennium, actually. That's why they're considered carryover funds. And we'll get hopefully, we'll get a whole new pot of money then for the next 2 years.
Do the students also have any availability to use these books online?
Yes, and it varies by course as to how the publishers bid those out, but the majority of those come with a variety of mediums, being a print material and an online resource. Some of them are an online resource only. So it really just depends on the publisher and how they put out those materials.
Hey, good job going after that time.
My pleasure. So, and I'm stingy with this money, so, I mean, because I knew this was coming, so I tried to be very frugal so that we would be able to do this, because there's a lot of districts out there right now that have exhausted their funds and they're having to pull out their rainy day fund in order to just get the year started. So we're fortunate at this time we don't have to do that.
We have a motion and a second. No, we don't. We need a motion and a second to authorize the payment of construction materials allotment fund via TEA to publishers and or via GISD instructional materials allotment disbursements in an amount not to exceed $290,170 for the items referenced above. Got the numbers right. Thank you, Ms. Stafford. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Adele. We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is to consider approval of budget amendment number 104.
Madam President, Dr. Liggins, Board of Trustees, tonight I would like you to consider amendment number 4. If we can remember, we had amendment number 1, which was $1.5 million, had to do with the initial construction of the STEM. Number 2 had to do with some AED purchases. Number 3 was a budget amendment for about $915,000 having to do with STEM. That brought us close to what the original contract was. Tonight I'm asking you to consider what the original contract is, plus all the technology and gym costs that were approved in May, brings us to a total amount of money that is less than what our current budget is. I'm asking for a budget amendment of $1,080,755, which includes exactly what you have committed today, plus the $50,000 Ms. Adele mentioned earlier, which will be covered by the 3 air conditioners, floor, and a simple little extra if that need be. So the number is $1,080,755.
Okay, we have a request to approve a motion authorizing budget amendment number 1,004 for appropriating funds to be used in accordance with the above mentioned details and that amount was $1,080,755. Do I have a motion? Stafford, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Butcher. We have a motion and a second to approve budget amendment number 1004 for appropriating funds to be used in accordance with the above mentioned details in the amount of $1,080,755. Is there any discussion?
What is the $1,064,259 consist of? And we've got bugs everywhere tonight.
That is, the technology, I'm sorry, Dr. Luke.
It's basically, it's part of the 1 million, whatever subtracted, the 50,000, is what's already been approved for the STEM. This is just writing the check, basically. It's not approving anything additional except that $50,000 for air conditioning and flooring and the 10,000 contingency. But this is something that's already been approved to build or to reconstruct the building. This is approving to write the check to get it to the vendor.
We cannot expend any money if the budget is not there. Currently, the budget does not allow us to go far, any further. And we have bills to pay.
Why is it that we consider these separate from each other?
Dr. Williams asked that question. It is my fault. The night we approved all of the technologies and the athletic facility, we should have had a motion to bring to you to do that same thing.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is just 1,004, correct?
Yes, it is our fourth one this current year.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is consider approval of budget amendment reallocation number 1005.
Yes, ma'am. This is simply our amendment number 5. We're not adding any money. We are reallocating current functional expenses. I want to move $250,000 from function 21. I want to move $750,000 from function 23 and move them. I want to move $968,269 to function 51 to cover payroll and necessary repairs for the end of the year. I want $19,495 to go to function 93. Our special ed has some bills that they need to pay ourselves for our fiscal agent responsibilities for debt education children. And I need $12,236 in addition to go into function 99 for property tax collection and appraisal service fees. So we're not spending any money. We are reallocating what's already been approved. Now, as we go into June, July, and August, these areas may require an amendment, but I'm trying to reuse the money that we have currently before I ask you for anything in addition without using all the money that's available.
So on the maintenance and operations, it's pretty significant amount of money. What is the makeup of most of that dollar figure? Is that personnel or?
Yes, ma'am. Payroll, and currently I need some money to meet payroll for the next
So we had an increase in payroll.
We just have spent money in other areas. And so by running out of money at this point, we need more money in there to meet payroll and required repairs. We're trying to make some repairs that are to prevent, we have ADA issues in elevators and.
Okay, I understand that. So we overspent what we normally would have used on personnel, so we're needing to make up for that budget somewhere else. My question is, if we're making up for it and have to cover the existing personnel, what additional expenditures were they unknowns and that's why they weren't budgeted? Or are we taking care of deferred maintenance under new leadership? I mean, what's going on?
We are trying to take care of the required repair and maintenance issues.
That we didn't know.
That we did not cover in the bond for whatever reason, for whomever did or did not budget. We find ourselves in a situation where we are paying for maintenance, the operation, the maintenance part, not necessarily payroll.
But now, this doesn't have anything to do with the bond.
No, ma'am. This is all general fund.
It's a good question though, of why wasn't it covered in the scope of the bond? How did we?
In that line,
some of the items include, for example, an elevator at the high school went out that just needs to be replaced altogether.
Middle school.
And the
middle school, there's two of that are.
And so little unforeseen things. Also, this is, as you mentioned, some projects that need to be done over the summer that hadn't been done, and simply getting school ready for the following year. And some of the, yes, about personnel. Some of the personnel increases included possibly additional substitutes, teachers. You can't often predict when teachers are going to be out, so possibly raise up. And that there's, in my opinion, can be some changes made to how we do principals being able to give substitutes for teacher training and things of that sort. So there's some, not that we gave a raise mid-year, it was some of the teachers that were out and some of the things associated with personnel that was not anticipated being as high as they were.
But I thought the payroll we're talking about is strictly related to maintenance payroll, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those that are paid out of 51.
Yeah.
Did you hire any additional personnel for summer for mowing or?
No, ma'am. The payroll, the allocation of 51 can be spent in a number of ways. It can be spent how it was budgeted, or it can be spent in other areas that aid up the payroll money. And that's what happened. We are trying to take care of preventative maintenance items that are required, that are necessary to prevent.
I'm glad to hear that we're making sure and we're not deferring maintenance, because, and so I'm glad to hear that. I'm not being critical of that. I think what I'm asking is this a result of new leadership coming in and seeing that these things need to be addressed? And is this something that will result in better maintenance scheduling in the future? That's all I'm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It is a large amount. I mean, the total budget was 3.8 million in 51 roughly, so. And we're adding nearly $1 million. I mean, that's a lot. That's an additional 25%. So there must be some, and it's not related to salaries. Salaries is what we're paying because we've already spent $1 million extra on a bunch of equipment.
We have salaries that are happening on an annual basis. We have spent money to repair and maintain the district.
Right, about $1 million worth.
Absolutely.
So there must be some really big ticket items. I guess that's
It's
like,
just a lot of things that weren't included in the bond that are,
I'm just gonna go ahead and verbalize the fact that greatly disappoints me, because we spent so much time doing a needs assessment for the basis of that bond for this amount to not be, have been included in the scope.
now there is bond money available. That is not this discussion.
Understood.
We will have that discussion. Dr. Liggins is approving anything that we are doing that has to do with things that were in the scope that weren't taken care of.
Understood.
Okay,
Is
so
this the sum of a bunch of the, as we were receiving the construction reports along the way, there was often things that were discovered when they peeled back the flooring, or when
they were not planned, it's not.
Is that what some of this
Yes,
is?
ma'am. Or it happens as a result of after they get through with what's required, now we need to go back and take care of a few other items. So those few other items are they're costly maintenance and repair items. They have been, it is neglect. I do not want to blame anyone or for any reason, but I'm not going to let that go further. We are going to fix them.
Are we going to put ourselves in a bind in leadership and instructional specialists by pulling this money out?
We are 9/12 of the way. I need to see how June, July go, and then we'll determine any budget amendment that may be required in those functional areas. But I'm praying that it was a misallocation in those areas, and that we will cover that correctly this time.
You've projected the payroll costs for those 21 and 23 items.
I do believe there will be a little issue, but I'm pretty close.
Why are we pulling it from those line items then if it's going to put those in the red?
In your budgetary report, you'll see the greatest percentages that are available at present for me to grab from and reallocate those.
I have a question. If we don't approve this and we want to wait and see, you know, if you think there may be an issue, my question is, are you able to, let's say maintenance, you need this money for payroll in that function, I think 51 or 53?
51.
So if we don't approve this, does it impact being able to make those payments, or does it just look like an overrun? And then we can remedy later?
We may not spend $1 more than we've appropriated. We are currently at that limit of appropriation in 51. If we are going to go forward with payroll, which is required twice a month, I must have.
Should we reduce it to cover this next month until, when will you know if there's going to be an issue?
July, June. I'm seeing an issue now, and I'm trying to bring it forth to try to correct. Will I see the result in 23 and 21? I will see that in the next 60 days, and I need to get to June and see how.
My question is this. You're requesting the reallocation of $989,000 in item 51. Is that to cover payroll? That's to cover payroll until when?
The end of the year.
Okay.
Plus.
And you think that there may be other issues associated with pulling it from curriculum, and that there may be another budget amendment later on?
To fix those areas.
Correct. So when will you know whether or not you are truly going to have an issue, let's say beyond July? When will
The next time we meet.
So that brings about my question. If we were to approve a budget amendment to take care of salaries for next month, and then that will give you more time to be able to assess whether or not there's truly going to be an issue with pulling that from curriculum, then we can do a separate adoption for all of that and have a better picture. And it will still allow you to get through and make payroll.
I would agree. Payroll in that function is about $200,000 a month, about $196,000. But then I cannot repair one item. I have 2 elevators that require $25,000 a piece that require immediate attention. I have LP Waters, I have 25 wheelchair-bound type children.
Perhaps a contingency upon payroll.
I will do whatever you want. My responsibility is to bring you the information.
I'm just uncomfortable moving $900,000 when we're anticipating that may be an issue.
The responsibility for me is to notify you and to reallocate every dime that's available.
I don't hear that is an issue. I think that it is an item that has to be paid in order for us to continue in function 51. It may mean that if we don't approve it, it may mean that we don't get the lawn mowed or the leaks in LP Waters fixed or something until at such time that we do approve the funds. I don't think it's going to create an issue elsewhere. And you tell me if I'm right or not, that you're moving this money around. It's not any additional money to the budget. It is simply moving it from one place where it's just sitting there to another place where it's going, it's an accounting move.
I am not asking for $1 more, not a dollar.
What,
I get it.
yeah, I don't want to say unfortunate.
We find
But
ourselves.
we find ourselves in a situation to where it would have been more idea to bring one piece and say, we're moving this, and that because we had planned to finish the fiscal year. We're not currently there. We've looked at this, and so what will happen is we're doing this, and quite possibly next month, then we'll come back and then we'll say, okay, now we know we moved some out of this, now we need to move from this account into that one.
Yes, sir.
It is not an ideal situation, but it is money that's in the budget that's just going to be moved around to make sure that we exhaust the budget and put it into place. If it would require additional amendments, probably more so than ideal, but it's no extra fund.
It is a common practice to have, for the boards to pass resolutions at the beginning of the year where this reallocation can happen all year long to meet needs in what areas. Not a budget amendment, it's a reallocation of what was adopted last August. So I'm simply saying I'm going to use every dime you've approved in every area before I ask for another increase in money.
I feel like we've landed in a spot where we're realizing now that we spent unbudgeted money on item 51 expenses. That should, as a board, I feel like we probably should have investigated that further when we were approving those expenses, or if that was even something that came before us, which if they were less than the cap, than the minimum, it wouldn't have come before us anyway. But we're nearing the end of the fiscal year, and we're realizing that funds were spent on unbudgeted expenses without increasing that line item, and now we're in a bind to make payroll. And that's, I hate that we're at this point where we didn't know about it before now and could have made these adjustments earlier.
You know,
so we should avoid that in the future.
Unfortunately, I guess I've said on this for a long time, and about this time of the year, that happens all the time. There is money in certain functions, and what he's saying is really true. He cannot spend not $1 more than what is in that one function.
But we should always know what we need to have on hand to make payroll, I mean, as a minimum, and then determine whether we're paying bills that we have money budgeted for in that line item or not.
Sometimes it's not that easy to do because of the way that money actually comes in. For instance, the salaries for, and I'm taking this as the salaries for all of the people in maintenance, not for the people in instructional.
Absolutely separate. This is 51 only.
Yeah, which is the biggest portion. They're not salaries that are really the same as the instructional salaries. They're not the same as those, however they are necessary. And there are times when you will spend more on maintenance. See, I've seen the maintenance budget be the one to get cut quickly before anything else. When you're actually running out of money, it's the maintenance that's gonna be put off. Can we put this off and not have two janitors in this building, only one, twice a week? We have different things that we've approved it because we don't have the money to do it. So the maintenance budget every year gets cut. It's the first thing that gets cut when you're short on funds. And I've seen this happen over and over. Toward the end of the year, there are certain budgets that you have to readjust, that you have to amend. There's no more money going out. But over here, there may be some money that we allocated too much to function. And you put it where it is necessary to continue.
Oh, I understand all the mechanics
But
of it, but.
in spite of this, this still is excessive to me, okay?
It could be.
Because first of all, when I look at this and it says support payroll necessary repair, that tells me that this money in 51 was spent in parallel with what was being done with the bond that was not covered in the bond. Is this a true statement?
Yes, sir.
And so we should have known, okay, up front, okay, that it was gonna cost us X amount of dollars because we found these things that was not covered by the bond when we started doing what we were doing for the bond. And so there should have been some reports to parallel us so we would at least know in the back of our mind that here's something here that we're covering the cost from this 51, from function 51, that is going to affect us later, okay?
We know it's not budgeted, so.
We know it's not
gonna
budgeted, so we know that it's going to, it's gotta come out of this fund, it's gotta come out of this, function 51, so there should have been something there that would run parallel with what was going on with the bond, so we know that at some point we're gonna get a, amendment that is going to say, I'm gonna need X amount of dollars to cover this year. That would have made it so clean, okay?
I have one thing I want to mention. I don't have a problem with moving things between categories. I understand that, and it's money already spent. We've got to cover it, and that's how you do it, okay? But what I'm wondering is, next year's budget, we've got 3.8 million budgeted this year in 51, and we missed that guess by $1 million. Should have been 4.8. And yet next year we're thinking we can cut that 1.4%. And I'm just wondering, are we just thinking these things, these $1 million things that happen all year long this year, these are things we'll never have that kind of a problem in future years? Because it seems like, I'm just wondering if we really should be cutting category 51 by 1.4% next year, when this year it should have been 25% higher. So
Again, I think the correlation has to do with everything running parallel with the bond, okay? Those unforeseen things that actually got repaired, okay? That's what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm thinking we'll have unforeseen things next year, and I guess we're just hoping that we won't have $1 million of unforeseen things next year or any other year in the future.
I would think that if we haven't done a good job of those things running parallel with the bond package, then I think we could be in trouble. But.
Yeah, I do too. So I'm okay with what we're doing here. I'm just not okay with the budget for next year.
I'm not okay with this philosophy, continuing with this philosophy moving forward. I understand we have to fix the situation that we're in tonight, and this is the way to do it, so I get that. But moving forward, I think we need to track more closely what our non-payroll expenses are compared to the budget, and make sure that we're not getting in a pickle.
And not payroll expenses.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And not payroll, not just non-payroll.
Maybe
because that's what's happening, is they're ending up impacting payroll now at the end. So always making sure that we're covering payroll and then have an idea of what else we have to spend.
And maybe one way to fix that in the future going forward is at budget time. Take a harder look at it at budget time and do a better prediction.
Maybe we need to have more, we approved several $50,000, maybe we need to lower that so that we are aware of how much that's coming in.
I'd hate to do that.
Yeah, I hate to do that.
Then they go a month before they could do something.
Yeah, I would hate to do that.
I would recommend we, because this is rich discussion, and I think when we're having our budget workshops, I think that's a great time to bring this up so that when we're making those decisions, we can impacted right then when we're putting numbers on page.
I'm just grateful we have $900,000 to move for PD and
That's
Grove.
in all others.
Yeah, that'd be a whole nother can of worms.
But when we have our budget workshop, we need to bring those things up to see if they got a valid point. If we need to bring that up in that budget workshop, that, hey, we ran out of a quarter of, we overspent by a quarter, was it? Overestimated our budget. So, we need to do that.
The final question I have, and just thought, some of the maintenance discussions that we've had about, or some of the things that we're doing over the summer to maintain our buildings, is that included in this figure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. We have a request to approve a motion authorizing budget amendment number 1005 for appropriating funds to be used in accordance with the above mentioned details. And the total amount, would you give me the total amount of that amendment again?
Well, it's a solid $1 million.
Okay. In the amount of $1 million. There it is, right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second to authorize budget amendment number 1005 for appropriating funds to be used in accordance with the above mentioned details. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Madam President, Dr. Lee, Board of Trustees.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the approval, we need approval to nominate a committee of no more than 3 board members to update the board operating procedures manual.
Madam President, as you're aware, the board operating procedure, the school board is a self-governing board, and so the operating manuals details exactly what the guidelines are for operating. So a committee of no more than 3 that will not create a quorum can be not elected, but chosen to do this, appointed. So the last time I believe it's been updated, it's been a while, so it's due for an update. So
I'd like to nominate Aaron and Dale. Are you on there? For the commission?
Second.
Aaron and Dale.
I'll have to nominate Trina. Second on the other matter.
She just did her time on the strategic.
Trina, do you accept?
Oh, sure.
Of course.
I'll second that then.
Okay.
I like John.
John, would you work on that?
Next time, Slack. I don't know what committee it is. You're on.
I agree.
Okay, I guess we actually do need to vote on this. We're not, no.
Nominate, motion, second, and vote. Who's that?
Okay. All right, we will do that, but we have to now. We are going, I need a motion to.
For all 3?
All 3.
I move that we nominate Aaron Dale, Trina Safford, and John Kelso to the committee for updating the board operating procedures manual.
And please know, committee members, anytime you need any one of the other of us that are not in committee. You need us to do something, say something, or anything. Then we need to do that.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. And we have a second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is to consider approval of the district elimination plan.
Madam President, Superintendent Williams, Board of Trustees. As you will recall, we started this process back in January, starting with a resolution by the board, holding a public hearing, forming a committee, having those committee meet throughout February, April, and developing that plan. You were given an update to the plan last board meeting, and we are seeking approval of that plan tonight. We've also given notification to the Commissioner of Education. We have posted it on our website for more than the required 30 days. We have put that out for public consumption as well. And tonight we ask that you would approve that plan.
And is this for the next school year?
This will be for the next 5 years. We have 3 topics, 3 goals in that district elimination plan. One was to allow flexibility for the school start date. One was to allow for part of those certification areas such as CTE areas and planning and preparation time for teachers to use for USDs.
Okay, we have a request to approve the district, innovation initiative.
I move that we approve the district innovation plan as presented.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the district renovation plan as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is, of course, the consent agenda. And it contains A, the monthly budgetary financial report, B, consider approval of the vendor list, and C, board minutes for May 16, 2017 and June 6, 2017. As usual, if there's any one item that anybody wants to pull from the consent agenda, we may do so. Otherwise,
Madam for item A.
item A, we can do that, the monthly budgetary report. Okay, then the consent agenda now will consist of items B and C. We will entertain a motion to approve items B and C. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with items B and C. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now let's deal with it. You've got item A, monthly budgetary financial report.
Yes, ma'am. I had a question on the year-to-date monthly budgetary financial report for capital projects. It is
Six.
So, the questions I had on this one, there were some changes from, current expenditures from last month to this month. And, my question was, and specifically, the high school CTE, Bowie, and Travis sixth grade center, those expenditures increased, and one of them was pretty significant. It was about $551,000 on the Bowie expenditure, but that last month on the report did not have that amount listed in the encumbrances, which now puts us in an overrun. You know, looks like we overran by about $385,000. A lot of it was attributed to that. So I was under the impression that the encumbrances were contracts and commitments that we had out there with vendors. So for it not to have been on that column last month, but then become an expenditure this month, confused.
It can happen from a Thursday to a Thursday. We write checks on Thursday. We can encumber the funds by creating a purchase order. It goes through the approval cycle and write a check by the next Thursday, and it would never show up on this. It's in and out.
So that happens.
It's just an encumbrance, a reservation of funds through the purchase order requisition process until the check is cut. And then it's out of an encumbrance and it becomes accounts payable, a check written.
Okay,
So
what I'm not understanding though, if this is, so your encumbrances is if a purchase order or a contract is out there.
I can have a contract, but I may not have, say I got a $5 contract, but I don't write a $1 check until 3 weeks from now. I can put that purchase order on for $1 and within 2 or 3 days, have it gone through the approval cycle and write the check. It's been encumbered, reserved, and then it's out of encumbrance and the check is paid. It didn't sit there for the month from 1 month that you would see to the next month. It can happen as fast as the purchase order is approved and the check is written.
I would be interested to know what those 3 items were for those schools that we didn't have listed as an encumbrance last month, but became an expenditure in 1 month.
I get you a detailed listing of every check that was ever written.
Okay, I'd appreciate it.
Specifically for Bowie?
Well, Bowie, GHS CTE, and Travis sixth grade center.
I will get it for you.
And then also, the encumbrances have gone up in value on Travis and technology.
Now that 94, look at the Travis 107, 108 line, that 94,000 that is encumbered, we're doing an asbestos abatement right now while the campus is empty.
Okay.
So that's the encumbrance sitting right there. That will, if that job is ongoing right now, and because it was, the purchase order was done across a date, across the end of the month, if I had put that on June 1st and paid it when they were done in 10 days from now, you would never see that. It would go.
I understand. I guess my question is, we're talking about $500,000. What is happening in a month that we didn't already, with bond money, that we didn't already know about, have on a purchase order, have committed somewhere, that has come up in a month to the point where we didn't see it as an encumbrance, and now we've got it as an expenditure? I'm just curious what that is.
We're making the final payments on these buildings. So some of those final, everything is approved by Huckabee, that comes straight from our architect to allow for payment. Those are being paid to finish out a lot of these jobs.
Do we have a lot?
Are they exceeding what we thought they were going to be, and that's why we didn't have them? Because if I'm understanding correctly, the value that you have, let's say on a purchase order or contract, is the value that you're anticipating to be invoiced for, correct?
I don't know what the budget was set up for. That is a true statement. Whatever the budget was set up for, it must be set up for the cost of the construction. It must be set up for the architectural, engineering, and geotechnical. If that was not done, there could be some, what you would think would be a cost overrun on the project. But when bills come in that are allocable to Bowie, to Travis, they get paid and allocated to Bowie or to Travis.
Why are we paying bills that are greater than what we're contracted to
It's not what we were contracted. What you're looking for is what was budgeted. I do not believe that that budget was put in correctly, that included the architectural fees. I know it was not allocated to the different project. I know it wasn't. Now, it just wasn't. And I'm sure neither were engineering, and I'm sure neither were geotechnical.
Are you saying that you don't think these budgeted funds are correct? Don't they tie back to the GMP?
I'm not sure they do that.
Okay.
I think the budget was set first, and then somebody else helped me out, and then we did the GMP, did the bids of the GMP. And
So
and
why
they may
would
or
we
may not.
update the contract, this to the GMP?
Yep. It should be, so we would track the cost of what our obligation is. What we've been talking about this thing, we want our budget to match what our obligation is. Plus
I
the
don't
extra.
think anything, I don't think that far right column should be over 100%. I mean, it shouldn't be philosophically, it shouldn't be over 100%.
I think the budget was, they made a wild guess, an educated guess for the budget early, before we ever did bids, I think. And I think what we're calling this budget, I think was set before we ever went through the bid process. Maybe I'm wrong.
You may be right,
And then the bids came
But
in,
I sure
and the
did
budget
think-
was never readjusted to the bids. And so we haven't overspent theoretically the bids.
but
the
this,
GMP.
didn't we anticipate originally that Dewey was gonna be around 17 million?
Yes.
And we overran it by about 3, and
Yes.
if that's the case, we're looking at 21 million there.
I think your architectural fees are not budgeted, and neither were your engineering, neither were your geotech.
I don't believe you have to be.
You're right about that, Leslie. Bowie was way over, and the high school was way under and covered it. But how we did the GMP, I don't remember exactly. I'm just wondering how many more things, I thought we were done with all this stuff.
Yeah,
What
it's
have we got
concerning that we
still?
received a $500,000 invoice in a month that we didn't have listed as an encumbrance to me.
But that's a timing issue. At the end of 1 month, it could be no encumbrances. And then on June the 1st,
But we're done with the bond project, why are we seeing that?
but we're not, we're paying final cost, and then there's some warranty issues, and that may or may not be warranty, and it's just
I
designed.
understand we're paying final cost, what I'm not understanding is, in my thought process, the encumbrances reflect a change order that exists or a value to a vendor that we owe them. And then when they invoice, it becomes a payment and then it moves to the expenditure line. What concerns me is that we haven't, in this encumbrance section, we didn't capture $500,000 or, because to me, that's where the contract with vendors and everything takes place.
So you're questioning how we're defining encumbrance, whether it's not capturing all the things that.
Yeah, and
that would capture.
It is all centered around that budget column.
Do we have any idea what additional payments we have on each of these projects?
We are trying to close, there are some finalizations for bid package 1 right now that we are looking at and getting some answers on. We're trying to finish up and pay those last bills. And I can provide you with the last pay app that will show you what is remaining, what the retainage is. I will give you anything that you want.
I'd just like to know.
I will show you.
With those 3.
I can print a detailed general ledger that will show who the vendor was and what the dollar amount was.
Alright, so now, do we want to, table item A until you get those figures?
You don't, you wanna go ahead and vote?
Well, I don't think it'll change anything on here.
If it's accurate, that's fine. time. I just wanna, we've had accrual in the past too, so, and I just think that that is,
Our expenditure column has been accurate. We write checks to who we owe money to. The allocation of that budget for those architectural and engineering fees were not done correctly. Period.
I can understand a bill coming in within a 30-day period.
I
A
can
bill,
too.
but I'm just shocked that we're still getting massive bills like that
Yeah.
without, it's not the encumbrance that bothers me, it's the fact that, geez, I thought we were done, and we're not, we may still be $4 million away from being done, I don't know.
Well, I have a concern that, is there a mechanism in place that's gonna keep our total expenditures from exceeding the budget?
If we were to alter that budget, I have not touched that budget column. I have not gone in and adjusted that budget column so we would not see an overage. I'm not touching that because I didn't put it in, and I don't want to explain to you why I changed it. Not without asking for your
I get
permission.
that. Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding again. With this buoy, when you talk about geotechnical services, all right, that it was not done correctly, that's outside of the GMP, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So in order for us to have approved the geotechnical services, it would have been over 50,000, we would have approved it, and then you wouldn't have entered into contract at that point?
I believe the whole process was all under the auspices of your architect, which you hired an architectural firm to do this process with. And they are required to go get all of these engineering procedures.
Okay, I'll just wait.
Okay, so now for item 8, guys, let's go over this one more time. Do you want to table this until you can get answers to those questions, or do we go ahead and vote? Give me an idea.
Well, I mean, if we know that the table, that it's wrong, why would we approve a report that we know is wrong?
So you want to table it until we get it correct?
Well, then why do you say it's wrong?
He said it was.
No.
He said the budget number's wrong.
I'm making an assumption that those budgets are not the accurate number. I didn't put them in, so I do not know.
We don't know that it's 100% correct now that we know that it's not 100% correct. Why would we approve that?
If what you're asking me to do is to go find out exactly what the bid packages 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 were by campus and put them in here, I will do that.
Don't take the other one out necessarily, just add that one so we can see what the difference, if that's really the difference.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question.
You're gonna add that, not.
No, I would go find out what all the contracts were by campus
And replace the.
and replace the budget with what architect says.
And replace that first column of numbers. is what you're
Absolutely.
saying. Replace it versus add that so we can see the difference between the two.
I would add it so you'll see the difference.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
Rather than replace it,
you
I'd rather
wanna
see
see
the
it?
other one, if that's what you're gonna do.
If you want me to change so the formula grabs the new one, I will. Or I'll just give you another one with and one without, and you'll see how it comes out.
Yeah, you explain it, right?
I will do
Make
my
it
own.
make sense, if that's really what's happening.
We're saying, are we saying the budget should never be greater than 100%? I mean, the expenditure should never be greater than 100% of the budget?
I'm asking, is there a mechanism to keep that from happening? And if it happens, do we want to know about that when it happens?
Right, I
Or
agree.
that it's going to
It's
happen?
going to happen.
A
most
change
likely.
order will make that happen.
It's going
This
to
is a
happen.
surprise. It wasn't happening last month and it happened. So how do we, is there,
Well, the only way to know that, I think, is we need to know on all the other buildings, how close to being done are we? Because we all thought we were done.
And it's.
But we're
it's
every.
invoicing. Done, we said.
Well, how many bills is Huckabee gonna submit on every one of these projects yet that we don't
Every one
know?
of those invoices could be 1 or 2% over. And then by the time you have 11 or 12 line items, you're
In trouble.
significant.
Right. But you can't prevent overrunning the budget unless you are planning on changing the budget, right? If they submit a bill, we're gonna either pay it or go in default or something, but we're gonna have to pay it. And if it's greater than the budget,
I still do not understand how it wasn't captured as an encumbrance last month.
well, it happened so quickly, it happened within 28 days rather than.
What happened?
The bill came in that we didn't know was coming. It came in after the last
What do you mean
round.
we didn't know it was coming?
I think that's your issue.
Yeah.
I think the fact that an invoice comes in, goes through the process, and gets paid before it hits an encumbrance on this document is your question. And that happens every Thursday. We write checks. That happens every Thursday. In this case, it's a wire, but it's the same concept. Every Thursday, money's wired.
Maybe it would be good to know the guaranteed the GMP, guaranteed maximum price,
That's what I'm
right?
saying. Do we just
And do
pay
we even-
anything because it comes to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Have we exceeded?
Okay,
Well, not
what
that-
if it's not contractually in the that's what I'm saying. Do
Our
we just
our
pay?
architects are a professional corporation, and they are not gonna defraud us, right? We meet with them every Thursday. So we know where they are in the scope of these projects. We have pay applications that show what the retainage is, what's paid, what's the retainage, and what's the accounts payable is. And we're not paying for something that we did not, services we did not receive.
Are we paying more than the GMP?
Let me ask a question. I don't think we're getting very, I don't think we're getting anywhere. Now, you made a suggestion earlier that you can go back and pull all of on each of these projects in this capital project. This is the report we're talking about. And we can compare total budgeted bond funds, which you say are incorrect.
On the budget column, I suspect they have not been put in correctly.
Okay.
I'm making.
If we can go look at that.
I will ask,
If we can
I
look
will
at
find
that.
out from Huckabee, every project for every campus.
And my suggestion is, guys, that we do not approve item A until we get those questions answered.
Yeah, sounds wise.
We have the GMP, so we know.
And whatever the GMP was for those,
We certainly don't wanna pay more than the guaranteed maximum.
No, we don't.
And I'm wondering if we are, maybe we
How are we
are.
gonna stop ourselves from doing that?
Okay. So we will table item A. And you will get that to us.
I will submit those, Dr. Liggins, and he will send those out to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Next item on our agenda is future meetings and workshops. We've been having it a long time. Okay, regular board meeting is July 18, 2017. And we need to consider a date for board goals workshop.
No, we asked to
And consider dates for board budget workshops. Now, we got some legal issues for the budget workshop.
I thought those were tentatively already, we already have that.
Oh, those are, yeah.
Those are already.
They're tentative, they have to.
Yeah.
Talked about those previously, we haven't
Okay.
talked about them.
So we need to look at those dates that are in the budget presentation.
Yeah, make sure we all have left.
Budget presentation.
We have July 18th.
That's our regular board meeting.
That's also down as a probable budget work session. These are the dates of the work session that are in the presentation. July 18th, August 1st, and August 8th.
My recommendation would be that we have one early in July.
A budget or the goals?
Oh, the goals item.
I'm sorry?
The goals can be
Oh,
whatever.
but an earlier one in July for the budget.
For the budget, yes.
The other Tuesdays are the 4th and the 11th. So the 4th is out.
Fourth is out, and fourth and what is it, 11th?
Does it have to be a Tuesday?
It's not a Wednesday. Well, I would say not a
Wednesday.
But, I mean, the week of July 4th.
Is the workshop going to be evening?
It's up to you all. It can be any time that you're available.
Oh, if it's during the week, yes.
I don't wanna take off during the day.
So there's Thursday the 6th or Monday the 10th.
For the budget workshop?
Tuesday the 11th. You want it before the 18th. Listing off other dates, possible dates.
What about the 13th? Which is a Thursday.
I don't think that I would be able to make that one that evening.
Not in the evening.
I could do the 6th.
What about the 10th?
The 10th I can do.
The 10th?
I will not be. Just some first.
July 13th, our only option.
The 6th, but you'll be here the
The
6th.
building's closed on the 6th.
The building's closed.
First week of August, nobody's here.
Do you have a key to the building? Do you have a key to the building?
That's
usually
usually
when
the
they're-
we have another building.
That doesn't have, that's true, doesn't have to be here.
Yeah, that's the problem, because it's gonna be hot in here.
June, oh, that's a Wednesday.
It sounds like the 13th is the day.
Leslie can't come the 13th.
I
Leslie
may,
can't come.
I may.
When's the 13th?
It is a Thursday.
That is a Thursday.
The 3rd of July. It's a Monday.
I won't be that's okay. Carry on, that's better.
Just schedule for the 13th and if I can be here, I will.
I can't believe we can't meet because the building will be locked up. I mean, come on. I mean, there's gotta be an unlocked building somewhere.
You can come to my house.
Yeah, you can. If the 6th is the only day.
The 6th is, I'm not available.
Oh, you're not here, okay.
No, I'm
You're-
available even on the 4th, Monday, Tuesday, but the 6th through the 11th, I'm not
Poor fellow.
All right, how about the 13th? The 13th work.
13th sounds good.
I mean, y'all can do it on a Wednesday, I just won't be here. Okay? I mean,
This is, board goals or is this budget?
This is budget.
Budget.
Y'all need to.
Yeah, everybody here can be here. 13th.
Yes.
So our first budget workshop is the 13th of July. Do we want to plan the second one after that meeting?
yes,
Okay, so we'll just plan one at a time.
yes.
And at 6.
We might not have any more.
Might only need one.
Yeah.
We'll get it all done in the first one.
Yeah.
I'll do it all.
And, board.
And will it be at 6 o'clock or?
Now, what's the good time for everyone?
Six.
6 it is?
They give you enough time to get away before.
Yes, 6.
Board goals.
Regular meeting is the 18th.
So if you want to do any of that, that would gather the 18th in July, and we're gonna do that in July. August, yeah.
The other 2 dates in the presentation for the budget were August 1st and August 8th.
And those were tentative, those don't have, after the July 13th, you can just. The week after the board meeting, the week from 24th to the 28th. On Monday through the 28th of Friday. So the 25th is a Tuesday. The 27th is a Thursday.
Tuesday, the 25th.
You have to pick the two.
Everybody can be there August 25th.
July.
July.
And that's,
That's 6 p.m.
that's the board goals, right? Okay, sounds good.
You're kidding. All right, everybody double check that one. July 25th.
And July 13th is the budget, is that right?
Yes.
Isn't this captivating for our audience?
All right. Okay. Now, is there anything else to come before this board? There being none, we are adjourned.